Hey, good morning, everyone. Our first meeting of July, the Committee on Appointments, will call to order at 8 a.m. All right, we just have a few things on the docket here. We will start with a resolution approving the City Commission's appointment of Lucas Steer to the Vital Streets Oversight Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Any conversation on this item?
Just that Mr. Steer is the GRPS representative.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I remember with serving on Vital Streets that we had been looking for that for a while. I don't think they appreciated my suggestion of a school board member, so I think this is a good fit. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Oh, excuse me. All those opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to our second resolution, confirming Mayor LeGrand's appointment of Janelle Wright to the Mobile GR Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Conversation on this item? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to our third resolution, confirming Mayor LeGrand's appointment of Wesley Wilson to the Mobile GR Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Conversation on this item? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Our fourth resolution is recognizing Grand Rapids Community College's appointment of Todd Hurley to the Smart Zone Local Development Finance Authority Board.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Conversation on this appointment? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Our last resolution here, confirming Mayor LeGrand's appointment of Cara Gates to the Economic Development Corporation and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
So moved.
Support.
Conversation on this item? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And now we'll look through, have a little discussion on our current board and commission vacancy list. Ms. Bosker and I have been meeting. We're setting up a more formal meeting before our meetings, which is awesome. I appreciate Ms. Bosker for that. We will be meeting the mayor, I don't know if that was communicated with you, but the mayor will be off on the original date so we'll be moving that up. So hopefully we'll be meeting this month to discuss some of the vacancies that are mayoral appointments. And any further comments on our vacancies, Ms. Bosker?
No, next meeting's vacancy list will be a little more full because I'm going to add the Land Bank Authority in there.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping, still optimistic that we'll make those appointments at the next meeting. There's some extra steps at the state and county level just to keep things moving, and so it might still be August, but we're shooting for the end of July. And then I am also working out the urban ag and just meeting with liaisons and filling in some of the gaps of where vacancies are. And so the list might be growing, but we're still making progress.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your work on that. Colleagues, questions, concerns? Yes, Commissioner Isasi?
I think this is just a small minor administrative thing, but I saw Ms. Claypool walk in and I was thinking about when we have somebody who leaves that is a liaison from the organization, it usually ends up being the interim person who might be helping them, but are there any cases where that might not be the case, or is it pretty much, it's clear that maybe an interim, say in a director or managing director role would take over? Just didn't want to miss any of those.
In this situation, Ms. Claypool and I met yesterday, and we,
So it's already been taken care of?
yes,
Okay,
yeah, we're
well,
working on it.
Wonderful.
I think we're good, Ms. Bohach, but I think it was just one of those, obviously there are so many things that happen. The liaison piece is just one aspect of any of the roles, but just thinking about that as well when those changes happen. Thank you.
Yeah, we're working on it, and I think between the support staff and that we're able to work out who I should be in contact with or who is taking over.
Okay. Also, at our next meeting will be a commission night out in the 3rd Ward, I believe. Okay, I was right about that. In the 3rd Ward. And so typically, those are, I don't know what the agenda, we won't finalize that agenda quite yet, but I think that is always a good time to talk to individuals about, serving. I don't know that we need an actual table, because I feel like people mill about and things like that. But maybe there's something that we could have, just even a handout that's at one of the tables. Maybe it's a check-in table, is like check out the vacancies or something like that. So just want to be able to use that time wisely. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Commissioner. Staff, Commissioner Robbins, all set?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, that was quick. We will adjourn the Committee on Appointments at 8:05 a.m. Enjoy your morning.
is 8:30. We'll go ahead and get fiscal committee here underway. Item number 1, we've got a resolution recognizing West Michigan Center for Arts and Technology as a local civic organization. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Not sure if there's someone from WMCAT here. You're welcome to come up if you have anything to add on this. The Department of Law is recommending that the committee approve this. We've done all of our due diligence and certify that WMCAT is in good standing.
Great. No pressure. If you have nothing to add, that's okay. Okay. All right, thanks. I'll turn to my colleagues and see if they have any questions on this. Nope. All right, well, I'll ask the question then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Thanks for being here, too. Item number 2, we've got a resolution accepting a $500,000 Environmental Justice Impact Grant Award from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for urban agriculture projects.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. We got Ms. Claypool here.
Good morning,
Morning.
Fiscal Committee. Laura Claypool with the Parks Department. So you have before you a resolution accepting a $500,000 grant from the Environmental Justice Impact Environmental Great Lakes Energy for urban projects, urban agriculture projects in city parks. The resolution also authorizes the execution of the grant agreement through September 30th of 2027. The grant funding will support urban agriculture efforts, including hiring a part-time staff to review effective urban agriculture processes, develop systems, and provide grant and support to local organizations. It's also to improve the infrastructure throughout the park system for watering, storage, and other site amenities. And the department intends to partner with the Urban Agriculture Committee in support of this grant.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions or comments, colleagues?
Well, very excited to see this as someone who served on our Urban Agriculture Committee before being elected. And we will be discussing the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan later this morning. And I think this is very important because funding is such a big question right now, specifically coming from the federal government. So it's wonderful to see the investment from the state and that we have some source of funding for these really important initiatives. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. All righty, I'll call the question then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 3, we've got a resolution approving a professional services agreement with the Children's Assessment Center doing business as the Children's Advocacy Center of Kent County in the amount of $66,000.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning, Mr. Weibel.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for consideration of this resolution. Our partnership with the CAC is very important. It's near and dear to the Chief's heart. He serves on their board of directors. If you don't know, we have 3 detectives permanently assigned to the Children's Advocacy Center from our Family Services Unit. It's a one-stop shop for families and children who have experienced sexual abuse. They can get medical help, attention, therapy, psychological help. They have a mock courtroom, so kids know what it's like when they have to face the person who abused them. This is a comparable amount to previous years. And Chief invited their president and CEO, Leah Ortiz, to public safety earlier this year. She gave a great few remarks and just very important partnership for us that we appreciate your support on.
Yeah, thanks. And we appreciated having her at Public Safety, too, a few weeks back. So, any questions, comments, colleagues? All righty, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 4, we've got a resolution approving a professional services agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Grand Rapids Youth Commonwealth in the amount of $84,000.
So moved.
Support.
All right, back to you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Another very important partnership for GRPD. It's part of our strategic plan to have youth outreach, especially with the Boys and Girls Club. We have an officer that rotates between the 3 clubs in the city. When staffing is up, we have more. We do an annual basketball game with students that are attending the Boys and Girls Club. Chief is actually president of the board of directors there. And Commissioner, to your comment about federal funding, we've seen in the news that the Muskegon Boys and Girls Club is probably losing out on a $500,000 grant. So I think it's more important than ever to show the city's support for this $84,000. Again, same amount as the last several years.
Great, thanks. Any discussion on that one, colleagues? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. That'll bring us to item number 5. We've got a resolution authorizing Grand Rapids Police Department's recruit class 25-05 to attend Grand Valley State University and Lansing Community College Police Academy for a cost not to exceed $99,258.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported.
Commissioners, this is our first budgeted police academy of fiscal year '26. We'll have 10 recruits. One will attend Lansing Community College, which is a new partnership for us. The recruit lives in Lansing, saves the commute to Grand Rapids, and also helps us explore other area academies. You'll remember we have done 2 or 3 with GRCC for their expedited academy. On a staffing update, as of July 1st, we had 296 sworn officers and 8 recruits in the academy. Of course, that math puts us at 304, which is above the 302, but there's also a handful of retirements that are coming, so that will be down below the 302 number. And then finally, this academy will run August through December. Then they spend 8 weeks in our mini in-house GRPD academy, and then 16 weeks with a training officer. So it's about 40 weeks before they're actually on patrol.
Awesome, thanks. So partnerships right now, we have GVSU, GRCC, LCC. Is that right? Okay. Okay. Just curious. Great. Any questions or comments? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. Item number 6, we've got a resolution authorizing an agreement with Network 180 at a first-year cost of $244,039 for a 3-year total cost not to exceed $753,255 for social work services in support of the city's homeless outreach team, also known as our HOT team.
So moved.
Support.
All right, move and support. We got Chief Brown here this
All
morning.
right, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, so you know that we've been going through a little bit of a transition with the homeless outreach team. Outreach work has continued this summer. My personnel are out in the streets. One thing they're not able to do, though, which is very important for the city, are assessments. So housing assessments, mental health assessments, substance abuse assessments. This will get 2 social workers back onto the team and continue that partnership with the county. Very excited to solidify this and just keep the good work moving forward.
Okay, great, thanks. Questions or comments?
Just one, Chief. Have there been any conversations about the ability to move this program now out just a little bit further, as opposed to not just downtown, only because I've noticed and heard from some community organizations how a lot of populations are moving just out just a little bit, not as far as, into another city or into Kentwood or something like that. But now you see those issues still going into other neighborhoods and other places in our community, and the need for those services. And I know that, they're trying to take care of what's here downtown, but even with the work that we've been doing with 100 and 100 and with the COC and other organizations, just wondering if that has been a conversation.
It certainly has been a conversation, and our team has noticed that. There's different trends and pockets that do move around the city, and some of it comes down to simply capacity. We do our morning loop, and then the afternoon we target some of those other specific areas. And believe me, if we find out about areas that need attention, we do allocate resources. So I would say just be very open and communicate with us. And if there's areas of the city that we're not seeing or haven't been in, let us know, and we'll be sure to get over there. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, good question, Commissioner.
Yes.
Just one follow-up for myself, too. So how does this relate then to the presentation or the discussion we had at Public Safety a few weeks back? I just want to make sure there's an alignment here.
Yeah, so several weeks ago, we talked about medical outreach and homeless outreach. We have peeled medical outreach completely away. That's off to the side. Mm-hmm. Homeless outreach is continuing as is. So this is essentially a continuation of the contract we previously held, with a little different staffing model. It's a little bit cheaper this time around.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was understanding those different pieces. So, okay, appreciate the information. All right, hearing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. That'll bring us to item number 7. We've got a resolution authorizing a 2-year agreement with Consumers Energy for the emergency with generator commercial and industrial demand response at 4 locations within the water system.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is essentially another agreement that we have with Consumers Energy. The water system has been partners with them on this demand response program for well over 10 years now. What you have in front of you is a 2-year agreement, but it is expanding starting next year. We are currently in our agreement. Our current agreement ends in, I believe, September of this year. And then when we start up again next year, we are actually adding in 2 additional pump stations into the agreement. In 2024, we actually received over $60,000 really for just being a partner. We did not have any demand response events in 2024. So far in 2025, we have not had any yet. I anticipate, we've been warned that there might be one today, which in those events, what happens then is we shave our load. We basically switch to generator power at our filtration plant, which it does reduce our ability to pump into town, but only a small portion. And then our Franklin Street Pump Station and Dean Lake Pump Station have on-site standby generators that we can switch to that have the ability to meet the demands of the system at that time. So this has been a good program for us, and we're glad to partner with Consumers Energy on it.
Okay, thanks. Just for people maybe tuning in, could you give like a 20-second overview of what one of those events entails?
So we have a test every year. In May, we do a test with Consumers Energy where they either text us, call us, or email us. Actually, they do all 3. We have multiple contacts. They're required to give us at least 30 minutes notification. Typically, the events are scheduled to start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when peak energy demands are out there for AC and things like that, when it's warmest at the day. So we will then turn over. We have our electricians on standby when we have these types of events, so we know that there might be happening, and we'll send our in-town electricians out to make the conversion at our 2 pump stations, which is the first time we'll have that. Our lake plant, like I said, has been doing this for over a decade now, so it's easy for us to do the transition over to the 3 large generators at our filtration plant.
I gotcha.
It is a 4-hour period that we shave load, so essentially from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. It can end early if there were to be a rain event or something like that comes in, but and then eventually we'll track the numbers, and then we get reimbursed for it at the end of the year.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know about the reimbursement piece. That's interesting. Okay, well, I'll turn to my colleagues and see any questions or comments. All righty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Those opposed? It carries. That'll bring us to item number 8. We've got a resolution authorizing a budget substitution for grit tank improvements at the Water Resource Recovery Facility Phase 2 project in the amount of $450,000.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the grit tank improvement project is a major project, the headworks of the treatment plant. Construction is running ahead of schedule, which necessitates the need to transfer money from the sewer replacement fund to help complete Phase 2 of the project.
Okay. We always love hearing something's ahead of schedule. Music to our ears. All right. Any discussion, colleagues?
Commissioner Belcheck and I got to tour the facility, so it's nice to know what the grit tanks do and what we're talking about, which is keeping our water clean for our neighbors. And can you remind us of how many, don't we also serve several municipalities around us as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah? So it's not just Grand Rapidians. Who else is it that this will help?
Yes, this helps the broader metropolitan community, including Grand Rapids Township,
Grand Rapids Township, City of Walker, Talmadge Township, Wright Township, City of Kentwood, Cascade Township, Ada Township, City of East Grand Rapids, Gaines Township, and Caledonia Township.
See, I was listening on the tour.
Yeah. Not to put you on the spot.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. I remember going out and seeing that too when I was first elected, and was just, the amount of thought and consideration that goes into me just turning on my faucet every morning is incredible. So grateful to hear that. All right, well, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. Item number 9, we've got a resolution authorizing the write-off of water and sewer utility account balances for fiscal year 2025.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. This is an annual item that the Water Utility Business Office brings to City Commission every year. This essentially, by ordinance, anything under $10 is essentially a write-off. The big number this year, there are a couple tax reversions in there that we can't collect on, but the big number this year is associated with the miscellaneous uncollectibles. Those are associated with penalties that were applied to counts that we have no ability to go back and collect on those going forward. So that's the big number. That's the big change this year. This number, some years can be as small as $500 and some years over $20,000. So.
Okay. Got it. Thanks. All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. That'll bring us to item number 10. We've got our bid list resolution for July 15th, 2025. Is there a motion? I think we need a motion for this one, right?
Yeah. So
Yes.
voted.
All right.
Support.
Moved and support. The next two, we don't need a motion.
Gotcha.
All right. Moved and support. I'll turn to Ms. Molly Claren here.
There are 10 items this morning, all fairly routine in nature. Myself or the staff are here if you have any questions on the individual items.
Yep. Thank you. And they're on page 27 in the packet for anyone listening online that would like to read through those. I'll turn to my colleagues, see if there's any discussion. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. That'll bring us to item number 11. We've got our City Comptroller's warrant report for the period of May 20th, 2025 through June 30th, 2025 in the amount of $116,059,636.15 and monthly travel and small claims reports. I'll turn to our City Comptroller.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
For the first report here for our warrant report, cash payments were released totaling approximately $116 million. That includes $16.6 million for employee payroll payments and approximately $2.3 million for income tax warrants. In terms of quantity, 10,289 income tax refunds were issued and 4,049 checks and electronic payments were issued. And as stated in the memo, the funds here were issued for payment not by individuals in the City Comptroller's office and not in accordance with the terms of the city charter. The second report I have for you this morning is our May fiscal year-to-date travel report. This is the prior year still, the majority of that year, and that report is showing just under $1.8 million on a total budgeted spend of $3.4 million. And then the third report we have here for you this morning is our second quarter small claims report. This report details the small claims paid out by the city during the second calendar quarter of the year, and this report is showing a total of 25 claims paid out totaling $30,243. And that concludes the three reports that we have for you this morning.
Okay, thanks. We'll go ahead and receive and file that. That will bring us to our last item of the day. We've got our treasurer's report for period of May 28th, 2025 through June 30th, 2025. And I will turn to our city treasurer.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
With our report today, just want to point out that we're still in the issue of tariffs is still a big factor weighing right now with the August 1st deadline. So I think we're going to probably see some major swings again over the next few weeks to figure out where those are going to land and be settled. Again, the economic numbers coming in over the past couple weeks, the jobs report was hotter than expected, which then causes the Fed to pause and wait for more economic data to come forward. There's now the rhetoric happening in Washington about whether the president wants the chairman to move on interest rates and the positions being held. And so we're going to keep seeing that type of thing that has happened and we've become accustomed to now over more than 4 years of that presidency. In July, we're looking at the likelihood that 77% chance the rates will stay the same. They're projecting the first rate cut possibly to be in September, but again, it all depends on what economic data shows up. The Fed is not afraid to move, but they're not going to move until they see the economic data show up. For our report today, we have $769 million in funds that we have invested. It's earning a little bit over 3.5%. early picture right now on our property tax collection is it's coming in very strong. So we're seeing our residents respond quickly. We have a great community here. It's unlike many in the state, where we know that we get to the end of our property tax collection period, we're almost 98% collected at the end. We work with our residents, we talk to our residents, my staff is fully engaged with making sure they've got the proper bills, answer their questions, we're on the phones, answering emails, answering the ones from the title agencies that are calling. We will see the large portion of this is going to hit our books in the next 2 weeks. That's when the escrow companies are going to be wiring in millions and millions of dollars. About 38% of our tax bills are paid by escrow companies. And so typically that last week of the month is when, this large pile of cash lands in our bank account, and our investment officer, Levi Bolt, is then scrambling to get that pushed out into U.S. Treasuries. Because what we do is we put those in U.S. Treasuries, because what that does for us is it helps us earn interest, which we then can turn over back to the municipalities or the local taxing authorities that we do business with. On average, it's roughly $200,000 of interest that we earn on these monies that we give back to those local taxing authorities, which, again, we're the fiduciary responsibility of investing that for them, because if the money was in their account, they'd be doing the same thing. They'd be investing it until they need to use it, and we follow the same practice because that's simply good stewardship, as well as safety and security of those funds by putting them in U.S. Treasuries versus holding them in a bank account. Right now, we're looking at just our GRP at work. We're 7.7% ahead of dollars collected, which is huge. We keep seeing that robust platform continue to be used. And we have 5.8% increase in the transactions that are being processed. So if you think about that, as those transactions are being processed electronically, we're not having to take and process a paper check, sort the mail, and then get that deposited to the bank. So the money is actually showing up in our accounts faster. So with that, that is my report for today.
Great, thanks. And yes, as much as I agree that our community is awesome, your staff is awesome as well for making the process as accessible as possible for people to pay their property taxes. So I think that contributes a lot to that 98% collection rate, which is awesome. So I will turn to my colleagues and see if they have any questions on our treasurer's report.
No, but I'll say happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Yesterday.
Thank you very much. Crossed the 6-0, and now I'm looking forward to more discounts.
There we go. There we go. Awesome. Great. Well, we will receive and file that report. And with that, that concludes our business for fiscal committee, and we'll go ahead and adjourn at 8:52.
Good morning. The time is now 9:15, so we're going to go ahead and call our Community Development Committee meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Our first item is a resolution approving a fireworks discharge permit for Pyrotech Special Effects, Inc. for indoor special effects at the Van Andel Arena in connection with Ghost on July 28th, 2025.
So moved.
Support. Moved and supported. Hello.
Hi,
Hey,
Roy LeGrone with the Fire Department.
good to see you.
Good to see you again, too. We have reviewed this request, and we recommend its approval.
Okay, wonderful. Colleagues, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You only have one today, so that fireworks season is ending, huh? All right, thank you. Number 2 is a resolution approving an alternate water supply grant agreement with the state of Michigan for Irene and Linda water main extension in the amount of $2,124,965.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Mr. Berkman?
Good morning, Commissioners. So this area located in Cascade Charter Township has been identified as an area of interest by the state of Michigan due to PFAS that was detected in drinking water wells. So Eagle secured the amount that was read, $2.1 million in state funding to pay for the installation of water mains, service connections to homes, and subsequently the abandonment of 48 wells. These funds are being awarded to the city of Grand Rapids to deliver this project, which is estimated to cost that grant amount. So no local match is required. Construction is planned to start in 2026. So seeking your approval of this grant agreement with the state.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a resolution awarding a contract with Diversco Construction Company Inc. for LMFP East Lagoon improvements in the amount of $370,000 with a total amount not to exceed $513,970.
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported.
This is out at the Lake Michigan filtration plant, where this contract will cover the dredging of existing alum sludge that's a residual of the water treatment process from the East Lagoon. That's one of 2 lagoons out there. It'll be dried and then removed from the site with new sand installed and the regrading of the lagoon base. Diversco provided that bid in the amount of $370,000. It was over the estimate of about $210,000, but we're requesting your approval of that award to Diversco with the total not to exceed of $513,970 coming from the Water System Fund.
Thank you. Questions, colleagues? Mr. Berkman, does this also include any of the work associated with didn't we receive some state funding for some of the lighting sterilization, or am I getting that right?
So you might be thinking of the Ash Lagoon, which is out at the WRF site,
okay.
the Water Resource Recovery Facility,
Okay.
where a significant amount of state funding was received for that project.
Okay.
But then also at the lake plant, there was some solar installations. So
Okay.
you'd be thinking of either of those 2.
Okay, thanks for that.
Sure.
All right, hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 4 is a resolution awarding a contract with C&D Hughes, Inc. for reconstruction of Plainfield Avenue from Fuller Avenue to I-96 eastbound on-ramp in the amount of $959,684.10 with a total amount not to exceed $1.6 million.
So moved.
Moved and supported?
So the Plainfield reconstruction from Fuller to the I-96 eastbound on-ramp will include new pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalks, ADA ramps, bike lanes, approach replacements, and new street trees. This short section of road is being coordinated with a much larger project that MDOT has currently underway on Plainfield from where we leave off at the 96 on-ramp up to and through Areaway Drive. So it involves the city, Grand Rapids Township, as well as Plainfield Township for that section. C&D Hughes provided that low bid amount of just under $960,000, which was under the engineer's estimate of $1.1 million. They will be utilizing an 8.6% MLBE participation rate on the contract. MDOT began work on their segment in June, and we're targeting an early August start for this project. We will align our work with their schedule, with their maintenance of traffic, and with their completion. And so requesting your approval for the award to C&D Hughes with that total amount not to exceed of $1.6 million coming from the Vital Streets Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Berkman. Colleagues, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is a resolution awarding a contract with Wyoming Excavators, Inc. for roto-milling resurfacing at various locations, contract 2024-4, in the amount of $2,735,327, with a total amount not to exceed of $3,633,500.
So moved. Support.
So this is one of our multiple roto-mill resurface contracts that covers various street segments. This one located in the northeast area of the city as part of our Vital Streets work. Wyoming provided that low bid amount of just over $2.7 million, which was under the engineer's estimate of $3.1 million. I'll note that we had 4 very competitive bids, only $7,000 separated the high and the low. Wyoming will be utilizing 11.7% MLBE participation rate for their subcontracted work and is also a registered MLBE themselves. Contract will be for a period of 2 years. As with all of these, we reserve the right to add locations or extend the contract subject to the city's approval and desire. So seeking your approval of the award to Wyoming with that total not to exceed of $3,633,500 coming from the Vital Streets Fund.
Great. Colleagues, questions?
I have a question more so just out of clarity and curiosity. I've noticed that for a few of the requests, some of the total not to exceed amount seems significantly larger than the project amount. So in this example, it's 1.1 million more than the project cost, and the item that we just went through was another $600,000 more than the projected cost. So that seems a bit high. I know typically I think 10% is contingency, but can you talk a little bit about why such a gap between the what's coming in as exact request and a not to exceed? I know there will be some things that come up, inflation, but that seems like a pretty large gap.
Right. Yeah, the item before, we did actually carry in almost 30% contingency, and you're right, 12% is the typical. For the Plainfield item, there was some uncertainty of water work related to a hydrant relocation that we still need to coordinate. So we carried a higher contingency to accommodate that work as well. In the roto-mill resurface contracts, tend to carry generally that 12%. I don't know what the percentage is on this one exactly, but in this case, we commonly will add work to the contract as we go if there's additional curb that needs to be repaired or replaced, or additional sidewalk or curb ramp related work, and so we'll carry a larger contingency to cover those types of items.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is a resolution approving an increase of $905,249 for improvements to the East Riverfront Phase 1 from US 131 to CX Railroad for a total not to exceed of $18,875,445.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Commission awarded this contract to OAK on March 11th to install approximately half mile of trail, seating areas, and new green space overlooking the Grand River adjacent to and behind the new amphitheater under construction, also including water access for recreational activities along the river. Bids, when they came in, were significantly over estimate, so in order to bring it within budget, we evaluated options to decrease costs. One of those included the removal of the catenary lighting. This item before you seeks to re-add that to the project. We've worked with our partners at DGRI to identify that additional funding that's needed, and the DDA did approve that funding amount to add the lighting back into the project. I'll also note that we're continuing to work to identify further funding sources to bring some of the other items that were originally removed, including swing benches and pavers, back into the contract as well. So there will likely be a future item coming back to you, but this one was critical to the completion and installing the necessary lighting foundations now at this stage in the project to add that lighting back into the project. So seeking your approval of this increase of $905,249 to the project.
Thanks for that overview. And Commissioner Perdue's last question had me making sure I wasn't missing some zeros in that. So any questions, colleagues, for Mr. Bergman? Again, this one sounds like this will come back to us.
I'm just curious how the process is going, if there is any update on, does this change the timeline or anything like that?
No, so the timeline is on this one, with many projects, but this one in particular is very critical because we need to be complete to accommodate the opening of the amphitheater in May of '26. And so this project provides the critical fire lane emergency access around the backside of the amphitheater. And so we're staying on schedule, but adding this item in now as opposed to months down the road, which would offset or undo some of those critical path steps, is necessary at this time.
Timing is everything, right?
Yes.
Great to hear about the collaboration with DGRI and figuring out how to make this happen with our budget constraints here.
All right, good questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is a resolution approving an extension for an as-needed asbestos and lead abatement at various locations with no change in previously authorized expenditures of $3 million.
So moved.
Another one we just did?
No, number 7.
We're on number 7. We just did the CX Railroad one.
All right, okay, yes. Support.
Supported, all right. Or I'm sorry, you're supporting it. All right, Mr. Berkman, thank you.
We utilize these contracts for as-needed asbestos, mold, and lead abatement services at city facilities, and you just approved a new contract for this as-needed work at your June 10th meeting. However, there is work that was previously authorized under this original contract that's underway and we still need to complete. So seeking your approval to extend through the end of this calendar year to accommodate that, the completion of that work.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8 is a resolution approving an agreement with Areaway Abandonment with GR Civic Theater, Inc. and awarding a contract with McGraw Construction, Inc. for Areaway Abandonment at 30 Division Avenue in the amount of $432,864.98 with a total amount not to exceed $844,020.15.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Berkman?
Areaways are underground vaults located beneath sidewalks, which are historically used for coal storage or other purposes. And this one in particular is along the Division Avenue frontage of the GR Civic Theater. On June 10th, Commission approved a $527,000 community enhancement agreement in support of this abandonment and sidewalk improvement with the state through the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, or LEO. The city's portion of the work will include removal of the Areaway roof, which is the sidewalk itself, surrounding support walls, construction of a new retaining wall, essentially reestablishing that basement wall of the theater, footing and waterproofing. This work is being coordinated with our Division Avenue project that's underway right now. We received bids. McGraw provided that bid in the low amount that was read of $430, almost $3,000, which was under the engineer's estimate of approximately $453,000. So seeking your approval of the award to McGraw with that total amount not to exceed $844,020.15. That will come from the Capital Improvement Fund, Vital Streets Fund, that Michigan Community Enhancement Grant that I referenced, and the DDA's Downtown Enhancement Grant. The Civic Theater will also be contracting separately for the relocation of their water and fire service. Some of that infrastructure is located within this Areaway, as well as their fire protection lines running from it, installation of a new snowmelt system, and the final new sidewalk. So this resolution also provides for approval of an agreement with the Civic Theater, coordinating all the pieces of this abandonment.
Great, thank you. All right, any questions, colleagues?
I just want to make sure I understand a bit of the technical here. When we're talking about an abandonment, we're actually talking about like filling it in, and so there will no longer be a vault. Can just kind of go through that process?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's opportune to remove these whenever we can, especially with work happening adjacent to the location of the Areaway. So in this case, with Division Avenue being all torn up, we were coordinating multiple abandonments. So you're right. They are vaults that are essentially underneath the sidewalk. They're very old, oftentimes not maintained, and so the safest way to handle them is to just remove them altogether. And so we remove the sidewalk, you break up the floor, or remove the floor that's underneath for drainage. There needs to be a wall reestablished where, you know, the encroachment of the essentially basement came out under the sidewalk, reestablishing that wall at what is about the property line, and then backfilling that and restoring the new sidewalk over the top so the vault ceases to exist.
Is it sand that you fill it with? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Great, learned a little bit of history. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9 is a resolution approving a construction agreement and a release of easement and accepting a public utilities easement for Glenwood Development.
So moved.
Mr. Bergman.
This is a private residential development involving 24 single-family homes and 10 two-unit townhomes that require water and sanitary sewer service. Development's located in Grand Rapids Charter Township, south of Cascade Road and west of East Paris Avenue. So request your approval of the construction agreement as well as acceptance of the easement, giving us rights to maintain the public utilities once in place. And there's also a release of an existing easement that covers a sewer that'll be relocated as part of this development and no longer necessary.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10 is a resolution accepting a sidewalk and utility easement at 501 3 Mile Road Northeast in connection with 3 Mile Road from Monroe Avenue to Plainfield Avenue resurfacing and authorizing a payment of $2,100.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Bergman?
We have obtained this easement from the property located at the northeast corner of 3 Mile and Coit. This is where a roundabout is planned to be installed as part of an upcoming resurfacing project on 3 Mile between Monroe and Plainfield. That work is planned for 2026. The resolution accepts the sidewalk and utility easement and authorizes payment of $2,100 to the property owner, which will come from the Vital Streets Fund.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11 is a resolution approving an easement at Ball and Perkins Park and approving a consent of easement holder at Greenfield Apartments each for $1 and approving a license at 1801 Leonard Street Northeast for $100 annually.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Bergman?
So there's multiple parts to this resolution, but begins with Consumers owns a narrow strip of property for their power lines that run through the middle of Ball and Perkins Park. They've requested an easement from the city to allow them to control vegetation adjacent to those lines, a 40-foot maintenance area as well as an additional 40-foot protection area that allows for removal of trees and overgrowth in the event of dangerous weather conditions, protecting their lines. The consumers offer to pay for those easement rights. However, park staff developed a creative solution with a counteroffer requesting a license for park purposes to construct a trail on consumers' property, which is currently dividing that city-owned park. Consumers agreed with an annual license fee to track that of $100. Consumers is also requesting easements from neighboring properties, including the Greenfield Apartments located to the south. The city has utility and drainage easements on that apartment property, so as an easement holder, we need to also approve a consent of easement holder in connection with this requested easement. So requesting your approval of the utility easement at the park, the consent of easement holder at the apartment property, and finally the approval of the license at 1801 Leonard for that $100 annual fee.
Thank you, Mr. Berkman. This is my ward, and I'll say this, you just like recited a little Parks and Rec plot line. No, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, I see Ms. Claypool here, and I just want to say thank you to the Parks Department. There has been a lot of work, Ms. Enriquez in particular, working directly with the neighborhood association over there, working with Consumers Energy. And so when people kind of say, why isn't this done in one day? Because there are a lot of considerations, and obviously there's regulations with utilities and all these different dynamics. So it's another small step in this process of improvement. So thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12 is a resolution scheduling a public hearing for July 29th, 2025 to consider a brownfield plan amendment for the Pleasant Hills Phase 3 project located at 539 New Avenue Southwest.
So moved.
Support.
Support. Okay, Ms. Renero, you're going to give Tim a break.
Good morning. Yes, my plan. This is the third phase of Habitat's work over off of Cesar Chavez. This will include the demolition of an existing storage facility to make way for new construction of a multifamily building with 27 for-sale units. The first two phases are under construction over there, and we're also to deliver 27 residential for-sale units, so we're excited to see this project continue. The housing will serve 80 to 120 AMI. And the other thing that I just wanted to call some attention to is this project is also, as part of this presentation, considering the $250,000 grant from the LBRF, so the local Brownfield Redeveloping Fund, to help fund down payment assistance for 16 of the units priced at 80% AMI. I just want to call attention to that because that's one of our priorities with that fund, in addition to the emerging developer work that you've been seeing come across the desk.
Great.
And, the other thing I wanted to mention is Andrew and Habitat team are sitting in the audience if we have any other questions.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Renero. Was able to hear about this through Brownfield. Andrew, is there anything that you'd like to add? Okay. I just feel if people come to this meeting, I should offer that since you've been here. Thank you. Colleagues, questions for Ms. Renero or Habitat?
I just want to say that adding that extra information in there and background and how the additional funding is being used, very exciting to hear, and appreciate that extra input. And I have had the opportunity to see some of this work, and it's very exciting to have some new housing. We know that that's a big issue always. So thank you for that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 13 is a resolution setting July 29th, 2025 as a date to consider a major amendment to planned redevelopment district at 221 Trowbridge Avenue Northeast.
So moved.
Support. Ms. Turkelson.
Good morning, Commission. This request is to modify a previously approved planned redevelopment district at Trowbridge, 221 Trowbridge. It was established in 2014 and is largely complete, meaning the construction is done. However, the owners saw an opportunity to make some minor modifications that then necessitated what we call a major amendment within the ordinance, which means that the modifications go to Planning Commission for consideration, who ultimately made a recommendation to City Commission of approval. The specific changes include the conversion of some existing interior space into 2 additional residential units, bringing the total to 68 units at the development. In addition, they would like to convert the existing leasing office, which is approximately just under 400 square feet, to a general office, meaning that it would be available for lease to the market versus serving as an office use for the leasing of the development. And then And the request also includes the waiver of some additional parking spaces. Currently, there are 69 parking spaces that support the development. So with the increase of 2 additional dwelling units and the general office that would be available for leasing, it would bring the total up to what would it be? Oh, shoot, I did the math wrong. 108 were previously allowed, or previously required, pardon me, and 69 were constructed. The new total required would be 112, and still 69 spaces would be provided. Sorry, I didn't state that very articulately, so let me know if you have questions. Also, Julie Shearhart from Progressive AE is here representing the developer, so if there's any questions that I can't answer, she can also support.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Colson. Colleagues, question about this item?
Will we have more opportunity to talk about this after during the public hearing, or is this the time we have to ask questions?
So we did not set this up for a public hearing. Of course, that would be your right to do so, but it's set up for ordinance consideration on the 29th.
Okay, I see. So I guess my question is is the planning commission or the zoning requiring us to determine the parking spaces as part of the project?
That was part of the recommendation of the planning commission. Their recommendation is to accept that 69 parking spaces is appropriate despite the increase in residential density and office space.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Colson. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14 is a resolution setting July 29th, 2025 as a date to consider an ordinance rezoning the northerly 25.74 feet, of 411 Fuller Avenue Northeast to the TBA Traditional Neighborhood Traditional Business Area Zone District. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported, Mr. Colson.
Yes, thank you. So this is probably one of those instances where things appear a lot more complicated than they really are. There is an existing parcel at 411 Fuller, and for reasons we cannot find record of, the parcel is actually in what we call a split zoning designation, which means the easterly 25 approximate feet of 411 Fuller is located in a residential zone district, where the westerly portion of the property, or the larger bulk of the parcel, is zoned in our traditional business area zone district. When we have a split zoning designation that is less than ideal for all parties, it's very difficult to develop around, and so this is simply trying to take a first step in reconciling how we would develop that property. The recommendation by the Planning Commission is to bring the full parcel into the traditional business area, which is consistent with the Community Master Plan, and thereby allowing the full redevelopment of the property. So you are not considering the redevelopment project in and of itself, although there's certainly details there and knowledge that there is a desire to develop the property as a mixed use. But in order to facilitate any reasonable redevelopment, this is an important first step for us. So again, it's an ordinance consideration with Planning Commission recommendation of approval, and details appear to be a little bit more complicated than I hope the explanation was.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Questions, colleagues?
Just to say that your explanation was very clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 15 is a resolution approving the commemorative designation of the intersection of Madison Avenue Southeast and Elger Street Southeast as Dr. Melinda Sapp Way. Do you have a motion, or do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved in, did you support it?
Oh, support. Okay. Sorry.
Mr. Bergman, thank you.
So a public hearing was held for this at your June 10th meeting. We received a request, you'll recall, from Pastor Rory Marshall and Lighthouse Full Life Center Church to designate the intersection of Madison and Alger as Dr. Melinda Sapp Way. Dr. Sapp passed away following a battle with cancer in September of 2010. Along with her husband, Dr. Sapp founded Lighthouse Full Life Center, which is located on the southwest corner of this intersection. So the resolution before you is for your consideration of that commemorative designation.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. Comments or questions, colleagues?
I'll just reiterate, we heard from current pastoral leadership at the church. I think Dr. Melinda Sapp's contributions in line with the guidelines for this commemorative designation have been met. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our last item, which is a resolution approving the commemorative designation of Umatilla Street Southeast from Madison Avenue Southeast to Union Avenue Southeast as Amelia Penn Way. Mr. Bergman? I'm sorry. I need to call for a motion. I'm not hearing a motion. I won't make a motion either, but I'll offer some comments. So we have two of these in front of us today, and these are not a regular item that we have. But in this one in particular, regarding the young man, Amelia Penn, we heard from family members, we heard from individuals who live on that street, and I think this one really stood out to us as, how do we have a both and? How do we recognize a young person whose life was taken by gun violence? And how do we also recognize the realities of individuals who live on the street and live in this city? And so Commissioner Perdue and I were able to have some conversations, and some others, about the fact that, gun violence is a public health issue in this city and across the country. And we were also talking about just seeing other memorials that exist in this city. I think I mentioned to you last night, Commissioner, was driving down Eastern and Burton area, and there is a makeshift memorial for individual. One of my cousins many years ago had a makeshift memorial near a barber shop on Hall Street near Division. And so I think the question became to us, what is a more fitting way to recognize and to bring awareness to the issue of gun violence in our city? And so we had some conversations. You mentioned to me, Commissioner, that June was Gun Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And we said, how could we connect to those that we know through our efforts with neighborhood associations, the police department, other community engagement efforts, and recognize individuals? So this motion will not be considered today, so that means this will go to our consent agenda.
Off consent.
I'm sorry, thank you. It'll go off consent later today, but there is a desire of this committee to move forward with a different designation that could not only recognize Mr. Penn, but also recognize other individuals, not just young people, but I think it especially hits home when it's young people, about gun violence, and try to tie it into something else across the city. So we've had that conversation with the city manager and have had it with some of our colleagues, but we did want to provide that further detail, and especially to family members, and we're happy to chat after this meeting as well. Colleagues, anything else that you would add?
I'll add, Chair. Thank you. What became really clear to me over the last few weeks is that this community needs ways, a myriad of ways, to honor those who we love and the lives that we've lost. And so doing that privately, but also collectively as a community, is really important. And so one thing that I will be doing, and I think others are supportive of, asking our mayor to designate every single June as Gun Violence Awareness Month. So that's one step of how might we collectively honor those whose lives have unfortunately been cut short so tragically. So that's just the start. I want to continue to have conversations about how else we might do that. In a separate example, there are some neighbors who are organizing to honor folks who have died in our city, who are buried in our cemeteries, but do not have family that have claimed them. And that memorial, public community planned memorial, is taking place this September. So that I heard loud and clear, like, we need ways to honor those who we've tragically lost. And I'm looking forward to partner with you all in city leadership to do a better job of doing that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So with that, 9:48, we'll go ahead and adjourn our Community Development Committee. Thank you all.
on. Now the committee of whole will come to order. City Clerk, do we call? We want to call attendance for this. Sorry. So first on our agenda is resolution approving. Resolution recommending approval by the Michigan Liquor Control of Social District pursuant to PA 12-2020 for the Granville LLC at 15 Ionia. Mr. Clerk, any other details?
Support.
Any other details, Mr. Clerk?
No.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Brings us to the second resolution, and this is a resolution scheduling November 11, City Commission meeting to November 13. And I would like to, given that this is, we all have complicated lives, my first impulse was to simply have you all commit to thinking about whether that makes sense. And perhaps tabling this or what's the technical word? Postpone this for a couple weeks. And then on the 29th, we can all make a hard commit there. Like, I don't want to push anyone too fast on the calendar. This is after all November we're talking about. So I don't know if it's, can I have a motion to postpone? Anyone, or does everyone want to go forward? If you want to commit to this for now, I would rather postpone and give everyone time to think about it for a couple weeks. Don't think it really harms anything. Discussion, City Manager.
I was just going to offer the reason for the meeting is our annual work planning session where we prioritize, and it is essential that we have 100% participation by all commissioners. So if there's someone who cannot participate, we really should rethink that date.
I believe this was, some dates were already fielded previously and discussed, at least from my end and for other commissioners possibly. So I personally have no reason to postpone it this time, but if it needed to be readjusted later, we could discuss that.
Okay. I'm not one, go ahead.
I'm good with it. I'm good with the date. I mean, I'd rather do it now.
Do we need to make a motion to get it on the floor, though, to have this discussion, City Clerk?
I think you're right. So motion for
So moved.
Support.
Okay. All right.
I'm good.
Okay. I am not 1,000% sure of my schedule that far out, so I would appreciate some more time to think about it. Commissioner Robbins?
Yeah, I can probably make either day work at this point, but if you're still trying to figure that out, I'd prefer to postpone this for a couple weeks to give you some extra time. I think I'm okay with that. So would I do make an amended motion or make a motion to postpone this to our July 29th meeting?
Sure.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of giving me a little more time to look at my calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unless you're going somewhere really nice, then we say no.
I will say I will appreciate the time as well. I have to schedule a surgery, so I just worked with city staff to see which when we have breaks and things. So this will be a little helpful for me with scheduling as well. So thank you all.
Great. Anyone opposed? That sounded unanimous. Okay. Thank you. So that's postponed. Third is Ms. Renero. I'll introduce this. This is a resolution for a 12-year OPRA. For the project, I think which we talked about prior, for ICCF down at 2017 Eastern.
So moved. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, this is a project you've seen with the process at the city. This is adding 15 new residential units and activating or continuing to activate the first floor as a U.S. Postal Service location. I'm happy to take questions, but I feel like there's nothing more specific that I would add at this time.
Great. Other than a resolution asking the feds to make that to update the post office, which probably wouldn't do us much good. Any other discussion on this? Okay. Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. And Ms. Renera, if you can stick for the next one, we have a 12-year OPRA request for Ms. Chivas Scott's project at 1032 Martin Luther King, which we've also talked about and we're all sort of, I think, excited about. So if you could reintroduce that. Yeah.
Support.
Yes, this is the project just east of MLK Park. This is activating 5 new residential units and 2 commercial spaces. This was initially thought of in 2019 and was stalled with the pandemic, and so we're reactivating the process here.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That brings us now to the resolution for an MOU with Canal Street Brewing.
So moved.
Great.
Good morning.
Morning.
So originally our MOU with Founders, or Canal Street Brewing, was from October of 2017. And in that, it stated that once the digesters were fully operational, we would revisit the MOU, make modifications, and what we bring before you today is a modified MOU that just states that we will continue to take the concentrated waste from Founders, feed it through the plant in off-peak hours, and the rates will continue to be evaluated and set through the rate study. This will be a 3-year agreement and stay in place until a new agreement replaces it.
Great. And if I recall, as a citizen, there's some beneficial, having their particular profile of waste in this system is actually beneficial to the operations of the whole system, right? So
Yeah, so feeding it through the plant in off-peak hours eliminates the highs and lows through the plant, so it creates more of a steady feed to the plant.
Great. Any discussion, colleagues? Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nobody. So motion carries. That brings us next to Ms. Turkelson, and I think this is a resolution setting a date for considering ordinance amendment on lot and yard requirements, non-conforming elements of the zoning code. And this is, again, we had an earlier discussion about, I believe it was 4 items, and so 2 of them are back for proposed change, correct?
That's correct.
I'll make a motion.
Yep.
Support.
Great. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Commission. Yes, this should look somewhat familiar. Earlier this year, there was a packet of amendments that came before the Planning Commission. 2 of the 4 sections of the ordinance were passed by City Commission. However, Commission asked the Planning Commission to further deliberate on whether there was opportunities to consider a more streamlined approach than what was previously recommended by the Planning Commission. So I have a very brief presentation just to walk you back through. In short, the Planning Commission affirmed their recommendation to allow for these 2 particular areas that I'll detail in a moment to be considered processed by an administrative departure versus the current zoning variance process. Oops. Uh-oh, Joel. What did I do? Here we go. Okay, so as a refresher, over the past couple of years, the Board of Zoning Appeals has had to deliberate on a number of what we call dimensional variance cases or non-use variances relative to basement egress windows to allow for a lesser setback than the required 3 feet and also to allow for some parking within a front yard, which is defined between the building and the street, to be reconstructed, replaced, or continued. The Board of Zoning Appeals has kind of developed a predictable pattern of approvals, and so where we have those policy decisions being made, it is completely appropriate for the city, the Planning Commission, to determine whether a policy adjustment is needed, and obviously they agreed. So that came before the City Commission. Planning Commission redeliberated back on 4/24 and affirmed their recommendation. So the zoning review processes are in the 3 buckets effectively. So there's what we call the by right or the permitted, which is a staff level review that is done by Planning Department. If there is, those are the baseline modifications. If there are departures, deviations, variances, choose your term, then it goes through a subsequent process that can happen concurrent or it would happen before a permit, depending on the particulars. So administrative departure is what we call a staff level variance or a staff level waiver. That planning department looks at what the consideration is and determines whether a deviation is appropriate. In those two cases, or sorry, in the administrative departure case, that does happen concurrent with the actual permit for the development. So basement egress window, that would happen at the same time, the departure, as the building permit review. A variance would happen prior. It does go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. They are quasi-judicial. It is a far more robust process that carries a little bit more time and effort to put together the application, and of course cost. And that's the scale that, well, sort of a scale slide that you see on the bottom of the screen. So relative to basement egress window wells, I won't describe the actual ordinance language. I did that previously, but certainly if you have questions, let me know. But why an administrative departure? Why was that recommended by staff and reaffirmed by the Planning Commission? Those departures, again, the baseline is a desire to have a 3-foot setback. So 1 foot would be a departure from that. And so we have that additional review to provide us an opportunity to collect information that we may not otherwise require, do an analysis of that information. So for example, if the adjacent structure is within feet of the lot line, there is additional structural information that we would need on a particular application that would not be typical of a basement egress window well. And so it is a departure, it's an exception. So looking at existing site conditions, looking at path of egress, making sure that we have an appropriate path, looking at what the manufacturer specs are. Where we have 3 feet, you can have the ladder to get out of the well in front of you, whereas if there is only 1 foot, you need the ladder at either end, so I come out of the window and I go my left to my right, left or right, depending on what that path of egress is and what obstructions might be in place. So Planning Commission did talk about this being a transitional period, meaning that let's learn. It is a step easier than the variance process, and there could be a point in the future where we have enough experience to be able to write language that is maybe more predictable in terms of getting to that 1 foot. But based on our experience and what we believe, we are not comfortable with that. Also, it's important to remember that when something is considered by right, they are objective standards. And if it meets those objective standards, I am legally obligated to approve the permit. And so that really makes it difficult to write code language with that knowledge, whereas the administrative departure gives us a more discretionary review, thinks a little bit more holistically about the circumstances of a property. Very similar reasons for why the departure was affirmed for front yard parking. This one, in my opinion, would be far more complicated to write a by right scenario, because the underlying premise for our code is that we do not want to support parking in a front yard. So this would be a departure from that general principle that we have as a city. And so writing a code to make it by right under certain circumstances becomes very complicated with a if this then that, if that then this. When you start developing code logic that has those exceptions versus the departure process where we can be more permissive, it becomes very complicated from an enforcement standpoint. It becomes to explain. It becomes a more challenging administration component. And when you have multiple plan reviewers, I think that consistency is really vital for us to make sure that we're consistent in our decision making. And when you have complicated code logic, you are more apt to make mistakes in how we administer it. So that, again, is the recommendation of the Planning Commission to affirm the administrative review process. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, this is set for a July 29th City Commission ordinance hearing, or not hearing, ordinance adoption.
Great. Any questions or comments, Commissioners? Commissioner Robbins.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just more of a procedural question. So, if this gets adopted, what sort of communications are done with like the development community? I know some of these things I've heard as feedback from homeowners when it pertains to like the basement egress windows and things like that. So I'm just wondering, what are we doing to, then inform people that something has become an administrative departure rather than having to worry about submitting the application fee, putting together a whole packet and things like that, just to, keep the housing conversation moving forward and notifying people that there could be a new opportunity then to build additional units in their house.
So that's a great question. Typically, we would be more responsive when we have ordinance changes. So when someone comes in, the planners would make would provide different guidance, right? We would no longer be saying you need to apply for variance. We'd be saying, oh, you can apply for a departure and here's the considerations. I don't know that we couldn't go back and look at what applications have been submitted that might be rejected, and I'm not sure. I don't want to promise that, but that's something we could look into.
Yeah, it was just more of a curiosity. I don't know. I'm even just thinking like social media wise, if there's things we could do to promote, moving to administrative departure on something like this. So I don't know, City Manager, if you want to add anything.
Yep, thank you, Commissioner Mayor. I think this is one of the positive things that we can express that helps us to address some of our long-term housing needs, and hopefully the development community would be responsive. So I just think good general awareness and education about the changes, I think, could help improve the perception of how difficult or how easier we're trying to make building housing in our community.
Commissioner Perdue.
Thank you. Excited to see this come back after a conversation a few months ago. So I want to go back to the window wells and just talk a little bit more about the proposal for administrative departure. So I think what I'm understanding you are saying is that by right means you objectively, if it checks those boxes, that means you have to say yes. And so you have hesitation that you'll be able to write the code in the way that it will truly be objective and not need to kind of have that personal touch. But when I read what's on this slide, the window well setback to a minimum of 1 foot from any side, making sure there's no obstructed path, proximity to adjacent structures, like those seem specific enough to give folks a formula and a guideline to objectively say yes or no, does it meet these criteria.
Yep.
So help me understand a little bit more about your, kind of how am I interpreting what you're saying correctly and how you will respond to that.
Yep. So I agree. I think it does look like it could be objective initially. Where it becomes far more complicated is based on where the existing building is placed is relative to the lot line, and whether a survey would be needed, and also where the adjacent structure is placed relative to their lot line. So especially in our traditional neighborhoods where we have two adjacent structures that are really close, having more detailed information like a structural soil engineering report and a survey would not typically be information that we would request as part of our review because they're expensive, and if there is clearly 50 feet between a structure and a lot line, for example, we wouldn't need to ask for a survey. And so it gives us that opportunity to look at what's happening with the existing lot and the closest adjacent lot and determining whether additional information is needed.
And that additional information come solely in the form of the survey that you mentioned, or are there other cost-effective options for folks?
A survey would be the only way for us to determine exact placement of a structure to a lot line.
Right. I'm thinking about a development I visited a few weeks ago, and it is in a denser neighborhood. You know exactly where the lot line is because they were able to build right up to it, whatever year. And then this house is built. They actually do have the window well. I mean, you can take out a ruler, right, and just see how far it is from the house to the lot line that they are aware of. So in a case like that, tell me how you imagine that will go through this administrative departure process.
Well, the ruler would not, you wouldn't know exactly where that lot line is without a survey, and also where the adjacent structure is. And
so if they already have one on file, like if they do know the lot line.
Sure, if there's one on file, we would of course look for that first and make sure that we didn't ask somebody to reproduce a survey that was already paid for.
Yeah.
But then the building department, through their review and also for us, would then require, I don't know the name of it, but where we evaluate the soils and the structure digging out for the window well does not undermine the foundation of the adjacent structure, and we would need a soil structure report to be able to produce that information. And some of that, although I mentioned that that's a building department review, we do work really hard to make sure that we minimize conflicts between codes so that we're not asking for one thing and another code of the city is asking for another. So sometimes there is redundancy. That was actually raised by one of the planning commissioners, is that why are we saying it here if it's over there? Oftentimes, the planning department tends to be that front line of an inquiry, and so having even if it's redundant, a list of information that's needed, we find to be helpful.
Thank you. That breakdown is really helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Isasi.
Thank you. I didn't have the same question, but I did just want to offer, a couple weeks ago, I had a constituent who had reached out, wanted to see about a survey. They were having some issues, and then Ms. Turkelson's office, I think you guys will oftentimes grab surveys if people share them. This person was able to get it from their realtor, so I just had that experience of your office helping out with that, so there wasn't that incurred cost. I just wanted to share, for me, I think that I had the opportunity to talk to a few past BZA members. I live with one, about this item and just trying to understand it more. How do we balance what is being presented to us and the changes with the master plan, but also, focused on safety and security. And I think, when I think about these pieces, I think I got some good feedback. So I just wanted to share, I'm prepared to support this resolution as is and accept those recommendations from the Planning Commission. Thank you.
So I have a couple comments. First of all, I was really happy that the commission, this body, sent this back to planning because I think we have to, as we look at zoning, always ask ourselves, just like we do with any governmental action, what's our justification for messing in people's lives? I mean, that's true of any law, you're right. Like, why do we need this? And I think that thematically across the continent with our real housing crisis, which is continent-wide, lots of forward-looking cities are saying, well, if you get rid of barriers to building, you lower costs of construction, you lower housing costs, you get us towards the things we want to get. And so the idea of doing things of right is, I hope, a conversation we'll continue to have. But I also want to thank you, Christian, and staff for coming up, and the Planning Commission for coming up with a reasoned response to this. I think it was very helpful, and I think those points are well made. Now, having said that, and I'm mostly comfortable with this, I will say often in my previous life in the legislature, I would have someone come in and propose a new law, and I'd say, well, that law might allow you to give somebody a felony if they raise their hand, and then the answer often would be, well, a good prosecutor would never do that. And I'm like, well, it's our job to write laws that can get enforced and to make sure that they can't be enforced badly. So if that could happen, it's the job of the legislating body to write the law clearly. So that's a long way of saying, this is not me saying planning is an evil body, or that your office is malicious. I get itchy always, though, with very broad language that lets you say no. So point number one there is, it is demonstrated that no other feasible location is practical. Well, that's demonstrating, and it's feasible, and it's practical. Those are all words you could drive the Titanic through. So if there was another location for a window well that cost $30,000, well, you could do it. It's a practical thing you could do. One person's practical might be another person's not affordable. And so I don't like subpoint number one. I would like to have people come in on window wells and be like, oh, right, I have to deal with that 1 foot setback thing. I have to make sure no one's going to trip and fall down this thing. I have to make sure the building next door is not going to collapse because I did this. We need to be able to walk around the house. Those all make sense. My hesitation is that a not cooperative and not helpful reader of this, of sub 1, could just say no to any alternative window well by saying, well, you could do it over here, and that's practical. And then the person says, well, it makes my whole project cost 20% more. And they're like, well, it's still practical. You can still do it. So feasible location, I think you're going to almost always find there's a feasible location around a building where you could have done something else. And so I don't want to make an exception in here that administratively could destroy the work we're trying to do. So I appreciate the sentiment, but I think that kind of language often creeps into ordinances. So like if we're concerned about 2, 3, 4, and 5, then let's just make 2, 3, and 4, and 5 the things you have to consider. And I don't know what 1 adds to it. So I just want to lay that out there because I think I'm prepared to move the hearing forward and take the action right now on this resolution. But when this comes back to us, frankly, I would be uncomfortable voting for this change with sub 1 in there.
The motion isn't for a hearing, it's to set a date to vote, I believe.
Right. I guess what I meant was we're not voting it out today. We're setting a date. So this isn't our final action on this. So
I am interested. I would like to. I think some of the points you raised around D1 is interesting. So is that implying that if someone wants the window wells on the side, but they could be elsewhere, it will be not denied? Or is that one of many factors?
So it's one of many. So it's not, these don't all work in isolation. But the underlying premise here is that the policy of the city would be that window wells should be 3 feet from a lot line. Now, I'm hearing that perhaps there's not agreement on that, but moving that aside for a moment, that is the underlying premise, that we would like 3 feet between window wells and the side lot line. There are the opportunity through now variances, if this were adopted through administratively, for us to say there are exceptions that we are comfortable with where we could reduce that setback to 1 foot. It's inherent in zoning that there is some level of subjectivity in terms of the discretionary review process with standards where we go through an application, whether it's city staff or Planning Commission largely, sometimes Board of Zoning Appeals, but less so, where we have to go through that applications and have that discretionary review in order for us to effectuate the long-term vision of the city, or in this case, the vision that, or the belief that window wells should be 3 feet.
Right, and I guess that's the discussion for us to think about is essentially, I am suggesting that something between this as written and removing number 1 would get us closer to of right without of right. It would then mean that it would remove that very broad discretionary language for the approving person. But it would still mean you'd have to go ask staff approval and you'd have to satisfy 2, 3, 4, and 5. And to Commissioner Purdue's point, like if you articulated it, great. But if you can't articulate, I can imagine scenarios where like, oh, you could put it in your backyard. And then the homeowner says, yeah, but that eliminates a parking spot. And they're like, well, okay, but you can do it there. So there might be, there are going to be, I'm presuming that there are reasons that people are going to be asking for this because it's going to make most sense for their project. And if all those if 2, 3, 4, and 5 are satisfied, I'm not seeing a 6, that's all. And if there was one, the real question is, are we going to make it, number 1 could mean we always wind up with 3-foot setbacks on all window wells because you just, number 1's invoked. And I don't know how many buildings there are going to be around where you can't put a window well 3 feet away from the lot line somewhere. I mean, you could certainly do it in my backyard. You can't do it on one of the sides of my house, but you could, anyway. That's my point. We don't have to decide that today. I just wanted to make the point. I would advocate for essentially eliminating number 1 and passing this. But that's not what we're up to right now. So thank you everyone for the discussion. So we have a resolution in front of us. Did we get a motion in support for the resolution?
Yes.
Okay. We prepared any other comments? Otherwise, all in favor of setting the date, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
So Mayor, just for clarification, so when we bring this back on the 29th, it will read exactly as recommended by the Planning Commission, and if there are amendments, then we can be prepared to adjust. Seems like the contention is around removing one item and not adding anything else, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
And that, I just want to confirm with Planning Director, that one change would not require a revisit of this item by the Planning Commission.
I don't believe so. They've deliberated on the language twice now, and City Commission could have the discretion to modify it within reason, and that seems reasonable.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to update on the
Closed session.
Okay. I'm being told first we want to make a motion that immediately after this public hearing, we move into closed session for consideration of pending litigation. And City Clerk, I believe that's a roll call vote. So need a motion first?
Support.
Got that?
Commissioner Kilgore?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yes.
Commissioner Sassi?
Yes.
Commissioner Purdue?
Yes.
Commissioner Belcheck?
Yes.
Mayor LaGrand?
Yes. That brings us to the update on the Climate Action Plan and next steps.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Commission. Annabelle Wilkinson, Chief Sustainability Officer. I'm going to be providing an update on the Climate Action Adaptation Plan as well as hosting a discussion on the next steps for the plan. We're going to be providing a very brief overview of the climate plan, a look at what the Commission priorities that were identified from the May 13th Commission Prioritization Workshop from the actions, some additional staff recommendations for consideration for those priorities, updates on the plan itself, as well as those next step options. So again, just briefly, the Climate Action Adaptation Plan, hello? Okay, there we go, is a roadmap for how the community of Grand Rapids will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and prepare for the impacts of climate change to meet our community-wide science-based targets. 62.8% per capita greenhouse gas reduction community-wide by 2030 from our 2019 emissions, and 100% per capita by 2050. And again, the city is committed to working towards those community-wide science-based targets, but achieving those targets will only be made possible with community buy-in and action. Why we created a climate plan was to meet global, regional, and local climate commitments. So working towards the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, working towards the state of Michigan's Michigan Healthy Climate Plan that lays out a pathway for Michigan to reach 100% carbon neutrality by 2050, as well as local commitments from our 2021 City Commission resolution and objectives in our strategic plan. Over the last few years, over 1,600 people were engaged during the climate planning process across a variety of formats. Work was also incorporated from the community master planning process, specifically the second round of engagement, which included over 1,800 participants and held workshops on the topics of climate mitigation, adaptation, and environmental justice. So the results from the May 13th Commission Climate Plan Prioritization session of the 197 actions in the plan brought forth 14 that rose to the top as priorities. So the first, with 6 of 7 supporting commissioners, was the Food System Strategy 1 Action 1, looking to adopt the recommendations of the Urban Agriculture Committee to reduce barriers in the code to greenhouses and hoop houses. Second was, with 5 of 7 supporting commissioners, Residential Home Strategy 5 Action 2, assessing and reducing barriers to innovative housing solutions, both of which are included in our community master planning process. The next 6 actions had 4 of 7 commissioners' support. They include installing and expanding separated and protected bike lanes and safety infrastructure, helping building stakeholders, especially small and minority-owned businesses, access funding and financing to implement energy projects, pursuing additional recommendations from the Urban Agriculture Committee to reduce barriers to backyard livestock and edible trees and shrubs, prioritizing neighborhoods with a low tree equity score for tree plantings and habitat restoration, reviewing ordinance language and identifying opportunities to reduce barriers to composting, and pursuing an update to the zoning ordinance to include native and native adapted plantings. The remaining 6 priorities, 3 of 7 commissioners supported, and those included leveraging funding sources like local green banks and on-bill financing to expand access to financing for on-site renewable energy and other low to no emission energy technologies, exploring tools and strategies for protecting residents at risk of displacement, increasing public access to composting, partnering with Vicinity Energy to continue to implement efficiency projects and pursue electrification of the STEAM district, expanding and promoting the DART EV car share pilot program, and pursuing a pilot program to utilize food scrap, mulch, and wood waste in the creation of compost soil and biochar. Staff provided an additional 6 recommendations to round out to a top 20, and those staff recommendations focus on balancing out the commission priorities that were identified with the analysis from the greenhouse gas emissions inventory and the climate risk and vulnerability assessment. The first 3 actions focus around the energy systems chapter. The first, partnering with energy utilities that serve the community to enhance access to and understanding of the programs that they already have, such as rebates, as well as working with utilities on their compliance with their clean energy commitments. Next is continuing to advocate for federal and state and legislation that keeps government at the forefront of a sustainable energy systems. This would include work like advocating for community solar at the state level. And lastly, identifying and supporting active community hubs to transition to resilience hubs, prioritizing neighborhoods of focus. And resilience hubs are trusted community facilities that support communities in everyday life, but also before, during, and after an emergency. The remaining 3 actions include exploring the feasibility of innovative financing solutions like a green revolving fund or green cost share program to help residents finance home energy updates, adding new pedestrian amenities that incorporate accessibility, and access to and use of actual data in building development, design, construction, operation decisions. So partnering with utilities on how to improve streamlined access to data at the building level, as well as educating and supporting businesses and organizations with free resources that are already available in community, like the Grand Rapids 2030 District Program, as well as the low-cost automated benchmarking service that they provide. So over the last 2 months, we have been working on editing the plan as well as making adjustments. Specifically, we have 44 minor text alterations that were included in the climate plan for clarity. Those can be seen on the website for the climate plan. I'd say one of the more substantive changes is a text change of goals to community goals. Again, focusing similar to that community-wide science-based targets that to reach those goals that we established in this plan, we need all of community buy-in to work towards those. From there, we're going to move into potential options for discussion. Essentially, we would like to ask, are there any other collective adjustments to the plan or the priorities that the Commission as a whole would like to see, as well as a review of these next step options. Based upon Commission feedback, we've provided a few options for choice. Option 1 is climate plan adoption, so adopting the plan with the priorities and updates that are established today. Option 2 is adopting the 20 priorities established today. And option 3 is reviewing potential adoption of the climate plan when implementation analysis is completed. So that would provide the Office of Sustainability a few months to determine responsible parties, clearly delineating for adoption what is the responsibility of the city and what is for external partnerships, assessing funding costs, greenhouse gas emission reductions, and co-benefits for actions with a consultant over the next 3 months, and establishing those short, medium, and long-term timelines for strategies and actions. Thank you so much. Looking forward to discussion.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, so I'm really excited that thank you, Annabelle, for Ms. Wilkinson, for your presentation. I'm pretty excited about talking about the Climate Action Adaptation Plan today. As many of you know, this has been my life's work. I recently joined the Michigan Environmental Council, so doing environmental justice work at the state level. It was great to see our Director of Sustainability and a lot of community partners at the Environmental Law Policy Centers get together over the past week. So, I know firsthand that we really need to act on climate now, not later. So I'm hoping that we can do a little mixture of the options here, which is I'm asking for the support of my colleagues today to have a resolution. If there's consensus, we can have a staff resolution that will formally recognize the first 20 CAP initiatives that we prioritize. 14 of the 20 priorities were pulled from our recent workshop. These were pulled from the first 197 actions from the CAP, and both had a strong backing not just from the Commission, but from our community partners. So I think that having a resolution for these first 20 actions further will show our commitment to climate action. And then, of course, we agreed to a total of 20 items. So there were, as we just noted, the staff recommendations, but I would remix those staff recommendations a little bit, both staff recommendations and then commissioners, staff have continued to meet with community leaders like the Grand Rapids Climate Coalition and the Community Collaboration on Climate Change about what folks who are deep into this work and do this day in and day out in the community also want to see. The common themes that we're hearing are calls for more transparency on the climate actions we're taking, safer streets for pedestrians, and support for solar energy. So it's a mix of both the support from the Commission, city staff, and the community. So if possible, I don't know if it would be a good time to introduce the possible 6 that we could add at this time and see if there's a support and consensus for a resolution to confirm those 20, and then allow for more refinement and editing. So it would be a mix of both option 2 and 3.
So are you suggesting city manager get Sunset Commission on the 20?
Yeah.
But of that, 14 are the ones that Ms. Wilkinson referenced specifically?
Comes from the workshop, yes. I think we should certainly adopt those since there was consensus and broad support on the commission for those first. And then look into editing the additional 6.
Great. So why don't we talk about the first 14? So I'm comfortable with the first 14, but going down the table, Commissioner Belcheck?
I'm comfortable with the first 14.
Commissioner Perdue?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate all the work being done thus far to kind of give us a starting point of what we will prioritize. I am happy and pleased with the 20 that are ahead of us, or that are before us, and I am ready to adopt this plan as soon as we can, as well as pass a resolution recognizing those top 20 priorities. And, Commissioner Kilgore, I heard you mention like solar streets and transparency are some of the continuing things that you're hearing. And as I look through the top 20 that are before us, I see all of those represented. Not so much of a data dashboard that you talk a lot about explicitly called out, but I think that's already part of the plan. So it sounds like we all are in alignment, and I'm ready to kind of push this forward and let staff fully operationalize what's in front of us.
Okay. The question was, are you comfortable with the first 14?
I answer that. I said I'm happy with the 20 that are before us today. So that includes the 14 and the staff recommended 6.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the staff 6 as the final?
I'm ready to move ahead on the 20 priorities that are ahead of us, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Isasi?
I support the 14th that we workshop. Thank you all for that activity. But you asked Commissioner Perdue a follow-up question. I have more questions on the 6. I just want to understand them more or see how they overlay with other plans that we have, i.e. our legislative agenda. So that's kind of what Ms. Turkelson just talked about. If we have something in another part of our city, why are we putting it somewhere else? Because I think we've said it's a priority.
Right.
And so maybe is that, to your point, Commissioner, is it about communicating it out? I think back to a presentation we did last year, City Manager, where we had a whole overview of all of the efforts that were not just the department that you were a part of at that time, before you had this new opportunity, Ms. Wilkinson, but really it's not just your department, and I know you believe that. It has to be every single department of the city, and so we highlighted what those investments were in every department. So I think for me, I need to understand more of the 6 or just ask some questions about logistics. But to me, I would agree that option 3, that's what happens after we adopt the plan. And at the last meeting where we reviewed this, I said I'm supportive of adopting the plan. And then to me, just like we've had with our economic development and mobile GR plan, just like we had with our community master plan, bicycle plans in the past, that's when that work starts. But we're saying this is a priority. I think the things in front of us, I remember in 2020 when we said climate change was a crisis. We also talked about racism as a public health issue. We've seen the things that have just happened over these last couple of weeks across our country. We've seen the air quality standards that have been elevated. I know people who have missed work over these last couple of days. So my plan is option 1, but I'd love to understand the 6 more so I can better understand how we execute those inside the city. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Robbins, are you comfortable with 14 that were outlined?
I feel okay about the 14 that we workshopped. I think I just don't feel fully comfortable supporting them unless I know the financial impacts. I think that's the piece that I need more comfortability on is knowing how much it's going to cost, to whom. And then also, I think going off of Commissioner Sassi's point too, I think good governance just involves not having duplicity in various plans overlapping. I think that just kind of gets us into, it feels like it creates just a web of different, bureaucracy and tape over certain things. So I personally would prefer to see things that are already mentioned in another plan removed entirely because they're already discussed or agreed upon. And And I also wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward with the 14 until I know the financial impact. The 6 staff recommendations I do have some concerns on. So my preference at this time, I think option number 3 would be best, just to review potential adoption once implementation analysis completed, understanding some of those financial pieces, and having some of the duplicative items removed.
Okay, if I could ask clarification, the question is whether we sort of commit ourselves to thinking about 20, and I was trying to make that into smaller bites. And then there's the question of the cap itself and how we draft that. So I think we sort of have, I was trying to break it into 3 bites. So the first bite at the apple is, are you comfortable with the idea that we would say, yes, we're interested in pursuing 20 things, but of those, these 14 you're comfortable with? We're trying to get sense of the commission here, so the city manager knows where to go.
Sure. I guess I don't know if I'm answering the question. I feel pretty comfortable about the 14 that we workshopped. The 6 of the staff recommendations, I don't necessarily feel comfortable with all of those.
Got it.
So if that's a no on the whole 20, then my answer is no.
No, I was asking about the 14, so I got you on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, I think what may be causing confusion, we have the slide on the 3 options, and I think what you're asking is that question before on that slide, or what other adjustments are the priorities are around the 20 or 14. So I just wanted to offer that clarity.
But Commissioner Kilgore suggested that we take a 20 action items. So the question is, where do we get 20 from? And we could just say, yeah, let's use the 6 the staff came up with and add them to the 14. Or we could say, let's look at those, for those 6, ask a mix of what do we all think, what have we heard from the community, and what have we heard from staff. So Commissioner Knight.
I am reasonably comfortable with the ones that we came up with when we had our meeting in prioritizing. I agree with Commissioner Sassy as well as Commissioner Robbins in making sure that, we're looking at this from a fiscal perspective and making sure we know where the money is coming from and that we're not duplicating efforts across the city. If somebody is already working on that, then why would we, and that's been done before.
Yep.
So we need to make sure that we are operating appropriately and figuring out, how are we actually going to do this stuff? Because it's all good to start implementing changes and things and saying we're going to do it and we don't have the money to do it, then it doesn't make sense.
So I think I heard general, at least majority, will to go forward and move towards us saying we're supporting those 14. Now the question is where the other 6 come from, and that may be something we can move forward on today, or that may be something we have to think this is a rolling thing, and so we can come up with those 6 after further discussion. But Commissioner Kilgore.
Yes, I'm comfortable with the first 14, and then let's make sure we get Commissioner Belcheck as well.
Yeah, Commissioner Belcheck.
Yeah, we did. I started off the round. I didn't know we were all doing a big talk. I'm comfortable with the first 14, as I said. If since others have shared, I'm leaning towards option 3, and I'm not opposed to the idea of a resolution to adopt 20 as well. I think that a good plan includes timelines and responsibilities and who's doing what, so that's part of the whole process.
Great. Okay, so I think we got some movement on 14 of the 20.
What do you think, Mayor?
Oh, I think we should adopt the first 14. I think that's easy. I think that as far as easy for me at least, because I think that, your point about the urgency of the now, I think that, how much we spend on something, well, if we're going to do a car share program, we do 1 car, we could do 1,000 cars. But like the idea of a car share program, as an example. So some of these things will scale depending on how much money we have, and we can talk about it. But I do think some things we can do now, and there's something we got pretty broad, not perfect consensus on, but pretty broad thematic support for. And also, it's worth pointing out that the fact that those 14 kind of were creamed the roast to the top, we all came to that workshop with that little chaotic Shark Tank, sudden death overtime, whatever that was, workshop. And the fact that, maybe my top 20, one of them didn't get in there, didn't mean I opposed something and only got 3 votes. So glad to have that. I think the next question for the 6, honestly, given that there's been so much community engagement, I think that we shouldn't just say, staff recommendations are only source for those 6. I think the staff recommendation is great. It's a resource. This is what Ms. Wilkinson does for a living. But I also think we've had lots of community partners who really put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. And so I would like to really deeply hear and consider, I think some of you may not have gotten it, but there has been some input proposed from C4 and from Climate Coalition on what should go into that basket of 20. I also think there may not be consensus on this yet, but my dream for this 20 is it's a fillable basket. So let's say we, for example, did hoop buildings, which is one of the first 20. Well, when that's done, then we can be like, all right, is there something else to put into the 20? So I think the idea of the 20 is great because it prioritizes us, it focuses us. 20 is a big list, but it's not a list that's going to make you sort of quit. It's a marathon, but it's not, scale the Everest. Because if I were asked to scale Everest this afternoon, I'd find something else to do. I'd find an excuse. So I think the 14 and the 20 are great. We may not be at a point where we can come up with the 20, but I don't know if Commissioner Kilgore, you had any ideas that you would come up with first for those 6, and I don't know that we've got time now, given our constraints, to get into that. I think maybe that just means we have to do some pondering, listening to the community, make sure we've all got those inputs from those community partners. And again, I think cream will rise to the top for those next 6. Then the question is, what do we do with the cap thing? And I think we can move to that question next. But if you guys want to speak to the 20, whether or not we do the 20.
I just had a process thought, Mayor.
Yeah.
Well, one, my understanding is that, and I want to recognize some of the people that are here and not just talk about some of the people. So I see a few folks, Janet Wesley from C4, Siney, that have been part of this work with C4 and also this action. I think for me, that's kind of why I'm going to option 1, because they had done that work. And so to me, they did that work, it presented to us, and then this prioritization. So I just wanted to add to that. But then I thought, we're kind of having this conversation, this staff recommendation, to your point, we had not discussed that. But obviously, I know staff is very actively involved with people with C4 and other groups too, so I want to recognize that. Is it possible for us to share, to your point, maybe not right now, but kind of like we do in the budget process, city manager, if we do have questions about the 6, could we share those so we get those answered? So then I know that would help me feel more comfortable of, yes, it's in the legislative agenda, and actually putting it there means it's an active item right now, so wouldn't actually need implementation. We would just have to say, we're all supporting that. And then, some of, to me, also, Action 5, the one about pedestrian amenities, kind of also goes along with some of the other pieces that we said. I know that many of us said around investment, because to me, if you're going to invest in the infrastructure, you probably also need to invest in those amenities. So maybe some of that is, I feel like that's an assumption, and so then I would support that. But is it possible to do that from a process standpoint, to propose some of those questions about those 6, so then you all can review, just like Ms. Claren does from an audit standpoint, and then can say, here are these things, and so then we can be prepared for this to come back for one of those 3 options for, I don't know. So it's a process thought.
Yeah, I think if there's, okay, so for what it's worth, I think it's worth, for the top 20, I think, I really think it's worth doing. And I think it's worth doing because we can say it now, we can do a resolution whenever it's appropriate, but then everybody in the community knows, okay, let's go do these things. I think personally that actually makes option 3 the most attractive of those 3 options, because if we are going to be working on 20 things, then the question is, can we make a cap plan that is really solid, that is really articulates a little better than I think the draft we had did. And my concern that I've stated right from the beginning was there are things the government can do. So if we look at our community master plan, it's largely focused on zoning. Well, zoning is a government thing. It doesn't suggest that we have more vegetables in our grocery stores, because we don't run grocery stores. I think the draft of the cap, for good or ill, had a lot of lane mixing. So there are things that we can do, and then there are things that we hope people in the community do. Well, if I adopt something that I don't have power to implement, that strikes to me as a process error. So I am perfectly comfortable with a CAP plan which said, perhaps in an appendix, here are the things that we think ought to happen in the community. We think the community ought to do this, this, and this, and it'd be great. And it would help us get towards our goals and the Paris climate numbers and all that stuff. But the body of the document is, what should the city do? And if the body of the document, if as it's drafted, I don't feel like this document does that. And so I would like the 90 days to separate those two lanes. There's what does the city do? What do we hope the community does? And a document that really clearly had those lanes separate, I would be much more comfortable with. Because if I'm adopting, I could adopt a resolution that Drew shave his head. But like, I don't have that power to make him do that. So that would be a weird thing for me to do as a mayor, right? Like, I don't have the power to implement. Whereas I do have the power to implement the 20 things we're talking about, and we do have the power to adopt a whole bunch more things in those 197, because a lot of those are things the city can do, and then the community can hold us accountable and say, hey, you said you were going to do solar panels on city roofs. Where are they? You said you were going to you were going to change the laws for composting. Why haven't you done that? Whereas if we say, we would like the federal government to do X, well, we don't control them.
Mayor, so if I can just, for the sake of clarity for the staff, just be very clear. We did the workshop back in May. We sent at least the staff's assessment of the additional 6 last week. You've all had them for a few days. What I'm hearing today, there's consensus around the 14. Of the 6, while some are prepared to support all of them, I've only heard a couple of objections to the legislative agenda and the pedestrian amenities. So is there consensus around 4 of the 6? And I'm trying to.
Yeah, and here's where I am, and I don't know about, let's ask around the horn, but where I am is the 14 seem clear to me, but I really, really want to honor the community work. And so it's great that we have 6 staff recommendations, but I don't want to say, oh, let's adopt 3 of those 6 staff recommendations and not look at the input of C4, Climate Coalition, WEMIAC, any other community member who's engaged in environmental work. And I would prefer to say 14, great, let's come back, let's make sure everybody heard from those community members so that they are honored, and then go ahead with the 20. So Commissioner Kilgore. Let's hear around the horn. Are you okay with 14 and 6 next, or do you want to pick 6 now?
I'm okay with staying on the 14 for now.
And listening to community partners as well, staff.
And then coming back to revisit the additional 6. I think that's what we've got right now.
Great. Commissioner Knight?
Yep.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that too. I guess my one question is just at what point will we get some information on the financial implications of the 14? Because I think that's still an important piece to me, but I think the 14, I feel okay about those.
And thank you. Okay, so just to wrap this up then, Commissioner Sassi?
I'm really uncomfortable with this conversation. I'll just be honest. I kind of feel like this is a repeat of where we were at that last meeting. Where's Andrea at? I'm not even being funny. So at the beginning of this, we say the city will act as a leader for this work by modeling emission reductions, implement actions, acting as a convener, and advocate legislative and regulatory changes. I don't believe that the assumption was that we were going to pay for all of these things. I guess that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why I'm not understanding why we wouldn't go with option 1, because I get what you're saying. We have a budget, which is a defining document of where we're going to put our activities, which we do every year. But this thought of we're going to have some costs that were not expected, I feel like that's why we did the 14 at the last meeting, because we all said, okay, we can understand that there's costs associated with some things. Mostly it's typically our staff time, convening time, maybe going to different pieces. And so that's where I'm struggling at a little bit, because on page 3, we say what we're going to do, which is not necessarily, we're not, and I hate to say it like that, but footing the bill for everything, because I think we have more power in modeling what we do, and I do think convening. So that's kind of where I'm struggling at right now. And then I'm also not clear of, I know Commissioner Kilgore, you had said something about a motion. Is this coming back to us on August 12th? That's kind of what I'm So I will admit, I'm confused right now. I just feel like yes, there's timeline and there's costs, but I don't think that there's anything in this plan. My biggest concern on the 6th, quite honestly, is with the green bank, the green revolving fund, mostly because I think there's other models out there that would be really good. Like Michigan Saves is a really popular green bank that has gotten a lot of support in the state. So, but I don't think that's the city setting up a revolve. I mean, we probably could, but there's other costs to that. So those are where some of my questions are, is in the nuance of this. But then to me, that's not really for me to do. That's for us to adopt, and then the staff take it and then like execute these pieces. So that's, I just have to be perfectly honest that I hesitate to say exactly what I want to your answer, because I feel like there have been a number of things around this, not you, Ms. Wilkinson. I'm not confused by what you've shared, but in this body of like, what are we talking about? What are we doing right now? So.
Okay. Commissioner Perdue.
Thank you. I think the way that we are going about this is odd. We cannot take a piecemeal approach and take 14 at a time, 20 at a time. The idea that we have to 100% be excited about all 297 recommendations in this is like, there's nothing that we do that we have 100%, you are 100% excited about everything. Everything is a compromise, everything is a big basket, and as we work through it, we decide what's feasible, what's priority, particularly given the changing tides and winds in our country and funding streams, so on and so forth. The budget is an example. I mean, every single plan, the master plan is an example. I think it's very inappropriate for us to go line by line by line. Even more, Mayor, you speak to, you don't want this to be about the city. One of the recommendations on slide 11 is to change the text from goals to community goals. And so I think that gets at what you're saying. This is a community plan. It is a visionary plan with some things that we can operationalize. And at this point, I think we are getting in the way of staff and community who have worked hard on this for years and who are ready to go, because we can't just say go. I've heard a few people say, well, we want to engage community. That whole plan is community. The whole plan is community. That was emphasized throughout the entire planning process, execution process, it coming to us for consideration. So the idea that we have to go back is just delaying. And I'm not sure, it hasn't been said to me off dais or on here what the incentive is for delaying. I would love to understand that. I think the public would too. But I just think the way that we are approaching this is entirely inappropriate, and it is very ineffective, and it is not a great example of governmental excellence. The last thing I want to say is on the staff recommendation piece, is that was a discussion here of, hey, you all are in the thick of this every single day. Please tell us what you recommend. And there are many voices around this table that said, yes, I would like to hear that too. So I just wanted to chart that for you all. We have community engagement and input. We have staff input. We have our input. We are ready to go. There's nothing that should be holding us back. If we do not move forward with this, it really makes me question, and it's not a rhetorical question, what is the true incentive for the holdup? Because every reason that I'm hearing today just is not fitting logically in terms of kind of what I've just countered with. So to answer your specific question, Mayor, again, I am fine with the 20 priorities. I would like to pass a resolution for us all to show that we collectively are okay with these being our top 20 priorities for now, and adopt a plan so that the staff can operationalize. A lot of what's in option 3 is operationalized. Last thing, just in response to something else that was said here, Commissioner Robbins, I was with you, like, especially in those early conversations of whose role is it? How much are we talking? Is this advocacy? Is this programmatic? Like, what is this? But we got those answers. We got those answers after staff came back preparing for the last session that we did. They broke it down by who's responsible. Is this legislative action? Is this program? Is it short term? Is it long term? Will it require money? Will it won't require money? That work has already been done. So there's nothing else that really should be stopping us right now. So I'm ready to move forward, 20 priorities, as well as adopt this plan, and let's get out of the way and let community and staff fully operationalize this, which is really the big ask here today.
Commissioner Belcheck.
Thank you.
What was the question?
Well, I guess the first question I wanted answered was, are you comfortable with moving forward on this 14 and coming back, presumably at the next meeting, to consolidate, including community voices on the final 6 to get us to 20?
So I really value and appreciate this entire discussion, and I really am hearing all the conflict and consternation. So I just want to honor that, first of all, because I do ultimately want to move quickly as possible on this. This really is not something I came into this position wanting to make sure that we had this sort of thing passed. There has been a lot of discussion and concerns, and I think, quite frankly, you brought them up to begin with, right, Mayor? So we could have been done. And I actually like some of these that the staff has put forward. I really like these 6. I really especially like number, whatever the one is about resilience hubs. I think that is essential, and to me is like a huge priority. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. These are valuable. These are good. I think we need to push the rapid forward in making amenities that we need to be able to sit at our bus stops. I see people putting chairs out from their own houses at some of them on the west side. So I don't want it to be an either or thing. I think this is a yes and thing, and I don't want anything we do here to preclude the other stuff, right? So I hope that's not what we're saying, that it's just more direction for the staff, but all 197 are important to be pursued. So first of all, am I clear in that understanding? Am I on the right page?
Well, I guess the question is, are you comfortable with the 14?
I am comfortable with the 14, and I just am saying I don't want the 20 to be a reason to not do the other things.
Well, and I think we talked about, I said, my hope would be that was a refillable basket, and that maybe it's from the 197, but as...
And I see no reason some things can't be simultaneously being done. So, so I guess those are some of my thoughts right now, but I like the idea of being able to have it be delineated very well, but I do honor that all the work that the staff, and I do think that all the work the community's done, I think the engagement is there, and I know that there have been some additional priorities or sorting that we have some feedback from, and I'm guessing that this is where this discussion is coming from, in terms of okay, if we're limited, then C4 and Climate Coalition have their input too. So I'm kind of rambling, so I'm going to be quiet now.
Mayor, I'm sitting here listening, and maybe Ms. Wilkinson has a different appreciation, but it is not clear to me what the will of this body is. We have 2 commissioners who already adopted as is. Mm-hmm. I think you're asking for a delay in adopting all 20, trying to get more engagement and feedback. I think that's what Commissioner Kilgore is okay with. Commissioner Robbins wants to have a 90-day delay. And Commissioner Knight, I think I am not clear on what this commission wants. And so what I would offer, Matthew.
Sorry about.
What I would offer is let the staff, you've given us a lot. We can go back and listen. This is not the day, we're not asking for final, we would have like direction. We have another meeting on the 29th. We can ask, was offered earlier, if there are questions, we can get those questions answered and come back and see if there's consensus on the 29th for what we put on the agenda on the 12th.
I just wanted to be clear, sorry to interrupt you earlier, that I had said earlier that I had been originally leaning towards option number 3 in case that hadn't been heard. But that's where I stand for now.
If I could, City Manager, I do think that there are 2 questions here. One is are we going to adopt an initial 20? And the other is, are we going to try to redraft, to have a 90-day redraft on the cap And I think those are two separate questions. And where I am on it is, I would like a 90-day reexamination of the cap, and primarily because I'd like it very, very clear to have city actions in one lane and non-city actions in another lane. Then there's the question of whether we can come up with a list of 20. And frankly, if we stalled out on a list of 14, we can go get those 14 done and then keep talking later. But I think I heard comfortable with 14. Then the question is, do we come back and talk about adding another 6? And we could just adopt the staff 6. And if we're going to stall out and get dysfunctional on coming up to 20, I'd say fine, let's just use the staff 6. But I would prefer to have input from community partners on those final 6 as well as staff. So I was proposing we essentially give staff direction, yep, we'd like these 14. We want to do a little more discernment on the next 6. That's question 1. Question 2 is, do we spend 90 days, revise the cap so the cap has a lot more focus and clarity on who does what? And those questions keep getting tangled up. And so when I ask the question, I get, oh, let's do option number 1 when I'm trying to talk about the 20, or we are trying to talk about the 20. So if we want to talk about whether we want to adopt this plan or ask for it to be revised, I'm in favor of giving staff direction to revise the cap because I'm not comfortable with the way it's structured right now. So Commissioner Kilgore, on the question of maybe option 3 and option 1 are really what we're talking about from my mind. And at option 2 is I think what everyone's agreeing we should do. Everyone's agreeing we should come up with 20. So it's not really option 1, 2, and 3. It's, are we going to do option 1 or are we going to do option 3? Do we want to adopt this cap as drawn, or do we want to come back and do some revision for it so that it's focused and clarified? And the reason I think the 20 is useful is because it gives us the ability to produce a better document which we can adopt. And when I adopt something, that means I'm saying, yeah, I think this is great. And there are parts of the cap that I think are, as drafted, and it's only a draft, that I think are not sufficiently clear for me to, and I think lots of people in the community have said, wait a minute, are you saying you're going to mandate things in the private sector? Well, I don't see that in the cap, but I see sufficient lack of clarity on who's doing what and who's expected to do what, that I can see where that lack of comfort comes from. So I think there's use to going back and making this cap document better, but also not stopping doing some actual environmental work tomorrow. And that's why I think we should be doing the 20 and redrafting the cap. And I don't think that redrafting the cap loses us a minute of time if we can identify 20 immediate priorities. That was my hope for this. So,
Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping on your toes. I didn't mean to. I just was going to ask if we can at least accept what this has been done by the community with the current, plan, if you want to use that word, yeah.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Like receive it or something like that?
Well, the question is, do you want to do option 1 or option 3?
Okay.
Do you want to adopt this plan, or do you think that it needs redrafting? So I guess I would like so if it's option 1 or option 3, what would you like to do?
I need to take a breath, I'm sorry.
Okay, Commissioner Kilgore, if it was option 1 or option 3?
Give me a moment as well.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Sir.
I'm prepared. I wanted to respond to what City Manager said. In a reality of trying to build consensus, which I agree with you, Commissioner Perdue. There's a lot of things that maybe I might not be my thing, but I go and support it because I think it is good governance. So let me clarify. I think this is what's striking me as hard is that, yes, we received the plan emailed last week. However, we also received that initial plan emailed, but we had the opportunity to discuss. So my lack of commitment to the 6 is not because I don't believe in them, but I don't feel like we had done the same process as we did before. So what I feel is like I don't know why we're treating this plan different than other plans. And so that's really, I wanted the opportunity to hear from Ms. Wilkinson about some of the questions I had, or city manager, or anybody else in the city, then that would give me the comfort to say yes. My assumption is that I would fully support the 20, but again, I will restate, my desire is to adopt the plan with the priorities, and then the work of the city. My work is as an elected official. My work is not to get into the details of what's going to happen, because all those things that you all, I assume, are going to work on are going to come back to us either in a resolution for a contract. It's going to come back to us in our next budget year. It might be a capital improvement piece. So there are checks and balances of how our city operates. And so that's where I'm getting stuck on, is the process, because I think that exists already. So then I feel fully confident that you would present something. We've had that when we had solar on Butterworth, right? There were a lot of options that were presented. Some of those were really high and very outside of our reach. And so then what did we have to do? We had to go back to the drawing board. So that didn't just happen because, at the time Ms. Sutter said, we're going to do solar at Butterworth and this is how much it is and I don't care because you said this was a priority. So that's where I'm struggling a bit, is I do think there are checks and balances in our form of government to ensure that those appropriate pieces would happen. So I feel like, I just don't agree with the process. I guess that's what I would say. So I'm almost positive I could support the 20. I wanted more discussion like we had before. And then my option would be option 1, to adopt the plan that was built with community, a variety of partners with the priorities, and then look forward to the work that would happen of the department and others for those checks and balances and budgetary considerations. Thank you.
So I think I got option 1 from Commissioner Perdue and Commissioner Isasi, unless I'm missing something. So Commissioner Belcheck, again.
Can I just interject a minute? Because there's a lot of conversation, but I'm not sure that the city manager and staff are getting the answers that they need. So in order to get this clear, perhaps, can we have the city manager state clearly what he and the staff need to move forward, and then perhaps poll the commissioners for a specific answer to what his question is?
Sure.
I also just want to recognize that Commissioner Perdue would like to speak.
Yeah. We'll get there. But we need to get answers to the questions. We can talk all day, and if he still doesn't have the answers to move forward, we're not making progress. Okay.
City manager.
Just, thank you, City Attorney. Just as broadly, I just want to, so Commissioner Isasi and Perdue are comfortable with option 1. Commissioners Robbins, the mayor, and Commissioners Belcheck are comfortable with option 3.
Yes.
Can I get clarity on the other 2 commissioners, please?
I'm clear with option 1.
Okay.
So I have a question regarding if we adopt 1, is there a way that we can still work with the office to give direction to further refine? Or is it just, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we can do what we're trying to do in 3, but fully affirm that we accept the cap today.
Yes, the implementation analysis that we outlined here was always kind of the next step that we were planning to take.
Yeah.
We won't adopt the cap. I mean, we'll get direction to move forward,
Right.
but there's, no adoption today.
Correct.
Then I would be comfortable with option 1.
So that's Commissioner Kilgore, Knight, Perdue, and Isasi comfortable with option 1, with Commissioner Robbins, the mayor, and Belcheck on option 3. Thank you.
Okay, I think that maybe wraps it up then.
Okay, so what we'll do is still ask for your feedback by email, and if we're not clear on feedback, so that we have another meeting on the 29th before the 12th, we'll make sure we get it comfortable. And I think we've already had a public hearing from the public on this with ample feedback, and so the public will still be able to give feedback once posted. And if there are any additional staff recommendations, we'll make sure we're aware of it. You're aware of it.
Then I think that moves us on to an update on the facilities master plan and the Calder Plaza.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to ask our city engineer to come forth. I know there's some additional staff from facilities that are here today and others who are part of some of the project planning, but we wanted to give you a high-level overview of some of the future issues. We have a lot of transformational projects that are happening right now. Soccer stadium, amphitheater, the MLK Lodge and Roosevelt Park Lodge, as well as a lot of capital improvements around the city. And we're really trying to look out in the future to see what we'll prioritize moving forward with city facilities in terms of acquisition and disposition of land. And so we want to give you just a heads up and get your feedback on that. And then secondly, there's been some discussion around what's happening here at City Hall and the Calder Plaza, and want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. So Mr. Bergman will walk us through that.
All right, thank you, City Manager. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. As City Manager said, we just want to provide an update on where we've been with the Facilities Master Plan. You've heard some bite-sized pieces at your fiscal 25 mid-year update, as well as the budget process. Wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the work that's being done under that to look at really the long-term operational needs of the cities, the investments needed in some of our existing facilities to act as a roadmap for what sort of renovations are in our future, new buildings or disposition, as the city manager referenced. But before we get into that, thought it would be good to lift up, many of which the city manager already noted, some of the recent or ongoing improvements facility-wise that the city's invested in. This slide represents over $280 million of investment, starting with the biodigester in the upper left corner and renewable natural gas, phosphorus recovery, that significant improvement to the capacity of our treatment plant. 1,500 Scribner, accommodating the relocation of 201 Market, over 300,000 square feet of building and garage space, accommodating 200 city employees, 200 pieces of equipment and vehicles, so that the amphitheater could get underway where it is today. The Grand Rapids Public Museum and the improvements along the Riverfront edge, MLK Lodge, the community center that's under construction there. You heard about Parks feasibility study with Indian Trails, and they're looking at site plan changes to accommodate that golf experience. And then the two fire stations and fire training center, but really a lot of significant investment in city facilities before we look at the what's ahead of us. So getting into the background, just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the work that's really been done over the past 2+ years associated with the Facility Master Plan, looking to align it with the city strategic plan and as well as our community master plan. Looked at the physical condition of our city-owned facilities, looking at costs associated with the maintenance that we're anticipating, looking at individual city departments and what their spatial needs are now and into the future, making better efficient use of the space that we have in the building stock that we maintain, but using this to be proactive in our maintenance efforts as well as future land use potential and not reactive. The guiding principles were to improve customer services. We have a lot of forward-facing services, making sure that those are centralized, clear, and have equitable access. Looking at ways to improve and increase collaboration by co-locating some departments to enhance interdepartmental operational adjacencies. Looking at a 10-year staff growth projection as far as what the needs of the city will require. Implementing new workplace standardization to increase our building utilization, make better use of the square footage that we have today. And again, analyzing our properties and building a stock, make sure we're accommodating the highest and best use of city-owned facilities and properties. 335,000 square feet were in the scope. Looked at 81 total buildings. Started with focusing on public-facing spaces in addition to the staff-occupied city-owned locations of administrative workspaces, but also things like our lobbies, labs, and specialty spaces, as well as our vehicle and equipment storage. Did not look at non-occupied spaces, so our parking ramps, pump stations, things of that nature. We surveyed city staff, got over 460 responses, interviewed 31 departments across 12 locations, but some of the design principles, there is a variety of work, as you know, that this city performs, whether it's public safety, public services, internal departments. We wanted to foster connections better, though, with among those departments and support focused work as we look at how to best use our space. Being a resource hub, integrating amenities, clarifying access, I already mentioned, but you see at the bottom here, really the timeline that this took, really volumes of information produced out of this. So the last study was completed back in 1996, so it had been some time. But looking back at some of those recommendations from the original study, things that were completed, creating a virtual 311 or a virtual city hall, which is essentially 311, and our website, your work center here on the 9th floor, some of the first phase of the mechanical improvements that took place a few years ago, moving police into their current location and the courthouse as well. ESD, Environmental Services, moved their lab onto the Water Resource Recovery Facility site, and we created an operations center known as the Development Center today, but that was a partial completion, and we'll get to kind of what the full implementation of that will look like in some of the coming slides. Things that were not completed, there was originally recommended a escalator connecting the Monroe and Plaza levels here at City Hall. Citizen convenience centers or satellite city halls, having kiosks basically where people can go without having to come here to City Hall. Consolidating departments within City Hall, executive, financial, and admin, but then also fully creating that operations center, which we'll get to. But those last three are all recommendations incorporated in this 2024 master plan. So some of the key findings, and there were many, but three in particular that I want to lift up that we'd like to move forward with some next steps on would be the renovation of this building, City Hall, and implementing our revised workplace standards as we go. You can see kind of what we were at as far as a usable square foot per staff to what's being proposed and increasing the efficiency of this building. The new, we've called it Community Resource Center, basically a one-stop shop for permitting, design development, project engagement, engineering, economic development, mobile GR, code compliance, and fire permitting. And then co-locating environmental services and water on the water resource recovery site with new administration and maintenance buildings. So here you see kind of the distribution of departments, where they're located or where they're recommended to be located. Those in italics are changes. So that consolidated development center you see on the left, recommendations include adding economic development, engineering, mobile GR, and fire permitting to what we know today as 1120 or the development center. Location for that to be determined. We'll get a little bit further into that in a future slide, but what's recommended here was that red ring, basically trying to identify a place that's ideally walkable to City Hall if possible. And then you see the balance of other city facilities throughout the map here. So next steps with respect to the master plan, I alluded to the three preliminary design studies we'd like to launch into next, starting with the Water Resource Recovery Facility at 1300 Market. Again, looking to co-locate ESD and water onto that site. We're already on the street with an RFP that was issued at the end of June, expecting responses later this month. Really looking at an in-depth study, though, of departmental needs, environmental site and equipment constraints, and maintenance-related shared resources of those two significant departments. We'd be doing an assessment of all buildings at the WRF. We've not done a master plan there. So taking inventory of what all is there and where we have space to accommodate new. 1900 Oak, our water department, looking at that facility, but then also 509 Wealthy. We know that it's only a matter of time before the significant redevelopment that's already taking place on Market will move south, and that key site currently houses ELC and mobile GR field ops. So moving at least that segment of what's in 509 Wealthy potentially to the WRF site as well. But looking at all current and future plant operations, making sure we're not consuming space that needs to be reserved for plant capacity expansion in the future. We know that we need to relocate the impound lot that's there today and make use of that space. Key priority was coming up with a new CSAT building, or collection system asset technician. Those are our Vector trucks and maintenance building, as well as administration buildings. But looking at a 25-year capital improvement plan for the site, but then also projecting needs out beyond to 50 years. We do a market assessment of 1900 Oak and 509 Wealthy, and also do a rate analysis study for water and ESD, looking at any undepreciated value of existing assets, but also what the impact to rates would be on any planned improvements recommended by that master plan. Secondly, again, renovation of this building, 300 Monroe. Looking at master planning our renovation needs, there are significant needs that are becoming overdue, but looking at departmental locations and how to phase an effort like this, going floor by floor, it'll take a significant amount of time. But there's major restoration needed from the facade and granite panels that need to be replaced, and some of the glazing. I mentioned the initial HVAC phase that was done a few years ago was the mechanical system. Now we have to do the distribution system, abatement of hazardous materials. All of our neighboring buildings have done that in recent years, and we know that it's due here. Looking to upgrade ADA standards, in particular restrooms, but also any public space, publicly accessible space, making sure we're up to date in those areas. Implement our new workplace standards that I referenced earlier, but having collaborative, supportive staff spaces, looking to improve workflow efficiencies, and again, allow for future growth. And with any building renovation, especially of this magnitude, looking for sustainability improvement opportunities. Then the Community Resource Center, again, I mentioned that one-stop shop earlier, but evaluating the existing development center at 1120 Monroe, and also together with it, the Coldbrook facility at 1101 Monroe together. Determining what 1120 Monroe can accommodate today will inform the City Hall master plan as far as what staff we can locate over there, but also look at other site locations and some preliminary design work associated with that. Again, I referenced ideally it would be walkable from City Hall, but that's just one factor. Parking is going to be key. Right now it's substandard there. Today we need to accommodate not only staff, visitors, but also those field staff vehicles that stay there. But looking to potentially partner with a developer and what opportunities they might bring with creative ideas and solutions about any co-location or complete relocation, and allowing for those sites to redevelop. Future action, as far as this body is concerned, we'll be bringing a budget amendment to you to fund these additional studies. Right now, we're anticipating that to be around $200,000 each, or $600,000 total. So one, of course, key facility and community asset is the Calder Plaza that surrounds our government center, and wanted to also take this time to update you on recent activity associated with that. And want to, again, start by uplifting some of the previous and ongoing investments. Over $9 million have gone into improvements like the south elevator access from the government center ramp you see pictured in the lower right corner. I've done recent updates to the wayfinding in and around the government center ramp, the repairs and painting of the LeGrand Vitesse, continued implementation of our asset management plan for the plaza itself, and most recently, Commission approved the extension of the Monroe lobby elevator that you see depicted in that center picture to come up to the plaza level. That would be just inside the county building in a vestibule, so we'll have additional access created that way. Some of the project history. So we've known for some time that the deck needs to be replaced and the waterproofing membrane associated with that. But looking towards that improvement also would be the ideal time, of course, to consider any enhancements. So back in 2015, GR Forward made recommendations of how that space could better be utilized by the community. Went through some significant community engagement efforts in 2016 and 17 that informed a comprehensive master plan in 2018. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. We did a post-pandemic revised study that altered some of those recommendations in 2023. Then Commission approved in March of 2024 our agreement with Progressive Companies to integrate what we know is needed as far as the deck replacement and what's desired as far as some of the planned enhancements. Since that time, we've been in a programming effort with our partners at DGRI. Mark Miller is here today on their behalf, as well as the county, and have had coordination with the Calder Foundation, looking at what other repairs are necessary to the LeGrand Habitats as we plan for other improvements surrounding it. The Convention and Arena Authority, our neighbor to the west, the Federal Building, CWD and their development of the building off Lyon, and the original steering committee members. We've engaged a construction manager that you approved a contract for at your last meeting on June 10th to help us now establish the final scope and budget associated with the enhancements and the deck replacement. So some of the enhancements that are being considered and have been talked about, you see pictured below, but additional green space, really breaking up just the expansive concrete just surface that's out there, providing for increased shade, increased gathering spaces, having dedicated event spaces. We know this is our town square, and we in fiscal year 25 had 52 events that accounted for 126 days of activation. So wanting to make sure, of course, we're accommodating those, making accessibility improvements, and I think by far the most consistent theme of feedback we received was opening up access to Monroe. And you see a depiction of what that could look like in the lower right of a grand staircase and elevator to support additional increased access, along with potentially opening up and daylighting that entrance into City Hall. As far as next steps, again, we're working with our construction manager who has just engaged OAK to determine the scope and budget. We need to confirm a funding source. We've been building towards what's needed for the deck replacement and waterproofing membrane replacement, but there is no funding source to date or established budget for these enhancements. So we need to determine what that amount will be, find that funding source, develop final construction plans. Again, we know this is a key community asset, so having a communication strategy that'll assist us with public updates and outreach. And then we will be issuing bid packages through our construction manager, OAK, this winter, with construction plan to occur in 26 and 27. And with that, I'd be happy to receive any of your feedback or answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Berkman. Now, you said on here, currently there's no funding source. Have some been identified and conversations happen, or?
So that's an ongoing conversation we're having with DGRI and trying to determine what available resources they may be able to bring to the table. The funding that we have in place is a split between the city and the county as far as the deck replacement and the waterproofing membrane. Mobile GR is contributing to that in their budget as well, because that's essentially the roof of their parking ramp. But still to be identified as far as the funding source for the enhancements.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor, I'll just thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I just and Tim and your team, as well as our partners at GGRI. I just want us, as we think about the future of the Plaza, it's been very historic, and what we know, change is inevitable. But I would want to make sure whatever enhancements that we make doesn't disrupt the activations that are already there, that it would create more activation, not just for individuals, but for large events. And so I appreciate the greening of the plaza. I think it works well with our sustainability plan, but I want to make sure that it's still functional to get people in and out when we have large events and we don't have to funnel them through one entryway to get into the plaza area. So I know that's a future design issue if funded, but I just wanted to say that now so we're not years down the road asking, well, how did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely part of the conversation, is still accommodating those large community events that we have, but also breaking it up and making it feel more intimate for gatherings and, smaller settings if you want to meet people for lunch or have smaller groups out there, not have it be as expansive and barren as it is today. Yep.
I do have one question. May I interject?
Sure.
So this is a great overview of all the things that we're going to have to be thinking about. Do you have any sense of the timeline? Is this the next 10-year, 20-year? At what rate are we going to have to be onboarding these ideas and implementing them?
So the deck replacement is overdue, so we need to start that next year. And obviously, the opportune time to make some of those enhancements would be to align it with that. We know that we won't be able to, likely won't be able to afford everything that's wished and hoped for, but making accommodations for some of those to be added in the future as we plan for that, or as we do that deck replacement is certainly part of the project as well.
And in terms of like all of these asset developments and maintenance, really capital investments that we need to outlay, this is like, we're not going to be doing this all at once, obviously. We're going to be doing it over a series of times. So I just wondered what the time horizon might be.
Yeah, so the entire deck will be replaced with the waterproofing membrane in 26 and 27. The amount of enhancements is to be determined, but whatever we can, we'll incorporate at that same time. But for instance, a shade structure was identified as a potential enhancement. If that can't fit into the budget, we'd make sure that whatever accommodations are necessary and planned for as part of the deck replacement, so that could be easily accommodated or added at some point in the future.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'm actually, my apologies, I wasn't clear. Like, when it comes to the facilities master plan and all of the other, not just the Calder Plaza, is there a time horizon?
Yes, so that'll be identified, I think, as part of those further studies. Certainly knowing that this building is in need of some renovations and repairs will inform kind of what that timeline is, but how do we phase it? Do we go floor by floor? Do we go multiple floors? Could everything be relocated at once? Likely not, but that will establish what that timeline is. ESD and water, again, let's looking at like a 25-year plan, but that will inform kind of what immediate improvements can we make, like where could a CSAT building be installed there, or where can the impound lot be relocated so we can start to make use of that space. So we can incrementally step into some of those recommendations, but really I think those preliminary design studies will help answer that question even better.
And thank you, because it does matter for all of our fiscal planning, so thank you.
Yeah, we will, whatever prioritization and designs that we feel are pertinent, we would consider those as part of our budget process and have an actual funding plan for some of the projects as we develop the budget and capital plan.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. That moves us into closed session.